Konoha East Uchiha is very cautious. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201, Remnant Soldiers. There are only 11 of us who are in good condition now, including you. Most of the remaining companions have been injured to varying degrees. Among the injured companions, there are only a dozen who are still capable of fighting. The rest have no combat capability at all. Facing the casualty figures reported by his companions, the mood of the Uchiha Jonin became increasingly heavy. As the commander of the camp, he knew the situation of the camp very well. Before the attack, there were about 90 people in their entire camp, including the wounded and the resting ninjas from the same village. Although his companions only made a rough count now, the situation was beyond his expectations. He did not expect that the other side would cause so many casualties to them with just one round of surprise attack. Fortunately, the news he received was not all bad. The other party continued to say, although there are not many people, those who can survive are basically some companions with high alertness. The strength of these people is the strongest in the camp. Among them, there are 2 senior ninjas who are resting in the camp. This is also a relatively normal situation. Although the surprise attack of Dong Shileng and his team was quite abrupt, the veterans who have been on the battlefield for many years still noticed it at the first time. When the whistling sound caused by their high-speed dive spread, some rock ninjas had already woken up, but Dong Shileng and his team were too fast and did not give them time to prepare. Although there was no way to save too many companions' lives due to the large number of detonating tags, but these people escaped the first round of detonating tags in the first time, hid themselves, and began to observe the changes in the base without making a sound. But the next scene scared them again. Those hiding underground were fine, but the rock ninjas on the ground were seriously damaged by Dong Shileng's previous round of sound illusion. Even so, when the Uchiha Jonin launched a round of tentative attacks just now, there were still many rock ninjas who took the opportunity to rescue many of their companions. Are there any sensory ninjas among the survivors? If they weren't there, we would be in a lot of trouble. The opponent's illusion is too powerful. I almost got caught just by using the secret technique to detect the situation above. If we launch an attack rashly and can't find the opponent's body, it will be difficult to get any benefits even if we have the advantage in numbers. There is no more effective way to deal with illusion ninjas than to attack the opponent's body. The sensory ninja who survived is Ryokshin, if I remember correctly. He is one of the sensory ninjas on duty tonight. I hope he can make amends this time. The sensory ninjas bear the greatest responsibility for the enemy's sneak attack on the camp. If it was in the wild, no one would blame them, but in the camp, or in the camp with a sensory barrier, it was still attacked by others, which is obviously a dereliction of duty. If the situation was not urgent and it was not the time to investigate the responsibility, he would have wanted to kill the other party with a knife to calm his current anger. But if the other party could not help in the next battle, there was no need for the other party to continue to live in this world. Although the rock ninjas are united, they do not keep idle people. This time's opponent, this time's enemy is the Uchiha Squadron. Before Uchiha Jonin could finish his next words, his subordinates had already finished what he was going to say. This was not the end. The other party continued. Just now a companion explored it, and the whole camp was covered by a barrier. Hearing this, Uchiha Jonin looked at the other party deeply. Even underground, such a close distance made the other party feel that he was being stared at, so the next words were not spoken, but the meaning that the other party wanted to express was self-evident. I know this Uchiha team. It has become famous in the past 1 or 2 years, but among them, except for the leaders who are a little difficult to deal with, the rest are just some young kids. In our situation, as long as we get rid of the leader of the other side, the rest will be easy. It's not that this Uchiha Jonin looked down on Dong Shileng and his team, but what Uchiha Jonin said was indeed true. As a team composed entirely of Uchiha members, they are undoubtedly the merits that all the rock ninjas on this battlefield want to obtain. Some basic information of the team was inevitably studied by these rock ninjas. although they didn't quite understand why the other side was a Boy Scout composed mostly of kids. But this did not prevent those rock ninjas from fantasizing about using Dong Shileng and his heads to exchange for generous rewards in the camp. That's right, in the rock ninja camp, a very tempting reward was offered to these Uchiha ninjas who were active outside, including but not limited to money, ninjutsu, and positions. Dong Shileng, who learned of this situation, became more cautious. At the same time, he was secretly complaining. Needless to say, these were all the faults of his own dance king. Yes, secretly relieved, the ninja who came to report the situation was very grateful. He was a little dizzy just now. How could he express his meaning so directly? Fortunately, Tsuchiya Jonin didn't hold on. Go and make arrangements next, especially Ryokshi. Let him reflect on it. If he makes mistakes next time, there is no need for him to live. Tsuchiya Jonin didn't take his deputy's gaffe too seriously. Even if the other party is also a Jonin, it is a person's instinct to fear death. It is understandable to have such thoughts when suddenly attacked, but the next thing must be done with great caution. Although the other party is younger, he dare not underestimate him with his Sharingan on the ground. As time passed, those rock ninjas who could no longer move due to injuries were basically cleared out by Yen and others. At this time, they were in groups of 3, observing the surroundings with vigilance, especially under the ground. They wanted to stick their eyes on it so as to find the traces of the rock ninja hiding underground. Unfortunately, the thick earth not only blocked Taoshiro's sound illusion, but even Yen's Sharingan was powerless against it. There was nothing they could do about it. The rock ninja's earth escape technique was truly the best in the ninja world. In this regard, a little thing delayed me. Chapter 202 Growth. At this time, the Uchiha clan members, who had basically cleared out the remaining enemies on the ground, did not wait for the rock ninja to launch an attack. Instead, Uchiha Tetsu began to perform the earth escape ninjutsu, earthquake core, and began another round of their offensive. These were originally planned in advance. After the first round of detonation talisman bombing, Dong Shileng performed a large-scale illusion to suppress the rock ninja and help them clear out the remaining enemies in the stronghold. Next, it was Uchiha Tetsu, whose second attribute was earth, who forced out the rock ninja hiding underground. This is also Dong Shileng's usual style. Once he takes the initiative, he will launch continuous offensives to give the enemy any breathing space. As Tetsu performed his ninjutsu, pieces of flat ground began to rise under the control of chakra, allowing the rock ninja hiding underground to show their figures, suffering from attacks from all sides. We can't wait any longer. Launch the attack right away. The Earthbound Jonin hiding underground originally wanted to wait a little longer to collect more information about the enemy and prepare his companions more fully. They were attacked in a hurry just now, and many of them were completely unarmed at this time. It was just the cruel reality that forced him to launch the attack in advance. Since the enemy had trapped all of them together with the barrier technique, it meant that they had no intention of letting any of them go. Earth escape earth and rock flow. Although he launched an attack, he did not intend to directly contact the opponent on a large scale. Instead, he used this ninjutsu that could raise part of the land to separate the battlefield and change the terrain. Earth escape yellow spring swamp. With the mobility of the ninja, it was simply impossible to stop the ninja's footsteps by raising some obstacles similar to high walls. After performing the earth and rock flow, he also performed the ninjutsu of yellow spring swamp. The obstacles that rose high from the flat ground became difficult to step on. Then he led the rock ninjas and picked one of the groups of opponents to go. This is also the consistent tactic of the rock ninjas. In conflicts above the squad level, use mudslides to create a large number of obstacles like a maze to separate the opponent, and then use the terrain to form a ninjutsu advantage to separate and annihilate the opponent one by one. Attack. Seeing that these people have initially gained the advantage of terrain, the surviving rock ninjas did not hesitate and rushed out from the ground one after another. They were divided into 2 groups and began to attack. The reason for the division into 2 groups is that one of them needs to find the illusion ninja whose real body is still unknown under the guidance of the perception ninja. If they don't get rid of the opponent, they will really be worried. Even if they have gathered together and can remove illusions from each other, they will still be wary of the illusion ability of the other party. Earth escape middle. Tuling Dango. As soon as the figure appeared, these rock ninjas showed their violent side. A short and strong rock ninja used his own chakra to create a huge oval rock with a diameter of nearly 30 meters and threw it at the target they chose. The target of their first round of attack was Uchiha Tetsu, who had just used the earthquake core. For these rock ninjas, this enemy who could get them from underground to the ground was the one they should get rid of the most. Looking at the huge rock opposite, coming with a fierce momentum to crush everything, Uchiha Tetsu did not choose to dodge. At this time, there were two juniors following him. If he dodged, they would not have a good ending. Earth style, earth and land return. Earth style, yellow spring swamp. Mobilizing his own chakra, Uchiha Tetsu had already performed two high-level earth-style ninjutsu in less than 2 seconds. Using earth and land return, he could block the attacks that came before Tuling Danzi, and also block the vision of the rock ninjas. Those rock ninjas who appeared would not attack one by one, they liked to rush in all at once. Then he used the yellow spring swamp ninjutsu to block Tuling Danzi's ninjutsu, and at the same time created a swamp in front of him, trapping the huge rock that was coming with amazing momentum into the mud. While interrupting the subsequent attack of the rock ninja, he could buy himself some time to facilitate the rescue of his companions. Watch your step. Even so, he did not relax at all. Instead, he reminded his companions and took the lead to jump onto the earth wall he created with the earth and land return. And where he just stood, rows of stone spikes were breaking out of the ground at this time. It was earth release, earth lung spear. When the opponent just performed this ninjutsu, he spent a lot of chakra. Almost all the places behind them were covered with these spikes at this time. If he had not discovered this fact in advance through the Sharingan and immediately led his companions to jump onto the foothold he created, they might have been pierced into skewers at this time. Fortunately, the earth-lung dango that just came towards them had not completely sunk into the yellow spring swamp at this time. It could serve as an obstacle for them. Otherwise, if they jumped to a high place casually, or faced the direction of the rock ninja, it would be no different from seeking death. As the huge obstacle slowly sank, Uchiha Tetsu did not hesitate and directly formed a seal again. Fire style, phoenix flower. Fire technique. Spit out football-sized fireballs, flying towards the rock ninjas exposed to his Sharingan sight. It's not that he doesn't know any advanced fire-style ninjutsu, but at this time, he has already performed two high-level earth-style ninjutsu in succession, and he needs to slow down at this time, otherwise, his own tendon system can't bear it. In addition, fire style, great fireball technique. Two fireballs with a diameter of 6 or 7 meters flew towards the opposite side with scorching light and heat. Aren't there two fellow tribesmen around him? Although the other party has not awakened the Sharingan, they can't find those hidden rock ninjas. But with his guidance, he can also threaten those rock ninjas with his ninjutsu at this time. Although the power of the ninjutsu is limited, it is enough to make those rock ninjas flustered for a while. Even so, Uchiha Tetsu did not stop his offensive, but pulled out several kunai from his ninja tool bag and threw them at the exposed rock ninjas. Among them, several kunai had detonating tags tied to the ends, which were the ones left behind for backup during this mission. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203 Mirage. On the other side, the perception ninja named Ryochin was squatting on the ground with sweat all over his head, and he was carefully sensing the enemies in the stronghold with his hands and seals. His perception ninjutsu was to spread his chakra in the ground under his feet, and sense the enemy's every move through the feedback of the earth. At this time, in order to find the hidden illusion ninja, he had to concentrate all his energy and spread his perception. However, in this way, the illusion cast by the opponent had a greater impact on him. Even with the help of his companions, he would fall into the opponent's illusion from time to time. If his companions had not kept a close eye on his condition and helped him to remove the illusion, he would probably have no way to act normally at this time. Not only him, but even the Uchiha Jonin and his assistant who were with him were also solemn and extremely careful at this time. It was really that the opponent's illusion attainments were too terrifying, almost all-pervasive. It was okay for a short time, but the longer he stayed in the opponent's flute sound, the easier it was to fall into the opponent's illusion. Found it. After a long time of effort, Ryoku finally felt something and pointed to a direction of the bass with a face full of affirmation. The source of the sound vibration is in that direction, there is no mistake. As if he was afraid that his companions would not believe it, he deliberately added a sentence. Everyone, keep an eye on your companion's status and be ready to help them remove the illusion. While giving instructions, Jonin led his two companions to the direction pointed by Ryoku. The current situation is urgent, and the strength of the opponent's illusion ninja is really beyond his expectations. If they don't interrupt the opponent's illusion quickly, the offensive of their other companions will not be very smooth. Oh, did you find me? Looking at the three rock ninjas on the opposite side, Toshiro was not surprised that the opponent found his position. The casting of sound illusions always requires a sound source. The opponent is a group of several people, so they can look after each other and it is only a matter of time before they find his position. But he will not sit there and wait for death. Although it is not convenient for him to make a big move at this time because he has to maintain the barrier, it is not a big problem to deal with these few enemies. Although the Uchiha barrier he cast did not make the caster unable to move like the 4 purple flame formation or the 4 red yang formation, it was still necessary to continuously output chakra to maintain the barrier. This also resulted in him not being able to completely let go. Even so, he did not completely lose his combat power. Magic Mirage. After putting away the emerald flute in his hand, Meixiang formed seals with both hands and cast this illusion that he had prepared for a long time. As his spell was completed, the entire base changed drastically at this time. Looking up and looking around, looking at the illusion around him, the face of the Uchiha Jonin became extremely ugly. His sight swept across the 3 huge rock statues in the distance, and then looked at the lively and dense flow of people around, as well as the bustling stores around. It was the night market of Konoha. Well, let's play hide and seek together. As he spoke, Meixiang's figure disappeared in the endless flow of people like ripples in the water, and disappeared without a trace. Release. As their own chakra was disturbed and then returned to normal, the surrounding scenery did not change at all. The faces of the 3 rock ninja elites were almost frozen. It should be an illusion similar to a mirage. Everything around should be fake. But, after roughly confirming that they were not under an illusion, the Uchiha Jonin had basically determined the type of illusion of the other party. The surrounding scenery should be some illusions, but they were unable to see through the other party's means of performing illusions for a while. Ryoku, did you find anything? Touching the surrounding buildings lightly at the right time, feeling the touch that seemed to be real in his hand, the Uchiha Jonin asked the perception ninja for his opinion. The anti-illusion training he received was aimed at the kind of illusion that controlled his own chakra. There was no good way to deal with this kind of illusion. Sorry, I can only feel that the opponent's chakra is all around, and the rest is. Although he didn't say it explicitly, his meaning is self-evident. Everyone can't stay here, otherwise the opponent's illusion can't be just a simple illusion without lethality. Ryoku, next, be alert and pay attention to anything approaching us. Pay attention to searching for the opponent's position. Yes, at this time, although the opponent stopped the sound illusion, this large illusion also forced them to deal with it carefully. Otherwise, all of them will die. Be careful. Just after taking a step, this perception ninja discovered something, pointed to the empty space in front, and roared loudly. In his perception, this location seems to have some source of danger, which makes his perception frantically alert him. And this feeling of danger seems to have been experienced not long ago. It's a detonating tag. In just a moment, Ryoku has determined the source of the danger, making his face turn a little pale. On the one hand, it was because of the attack just now, the opponent's wave of detonating talismans bombing, which really made him unforgettable. Another reason was that the opponent's method was really insidious. In such an illusion, if detonating talismans were used to set traps, Every blade of grass and every tree around could become the opponent's trap. It would make it difficult for them to move. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, several companions had just dodged a distance, and a familiar explosion sounded, followed by a flash of fire and thick smoke. This made Ryokyu recall what happened just now. Looking back, he saw that another companion seemed to have hit something because he was avoiding the detonating talisman just now. At this time, he was rubbing his back with a painful look on his face. This should still be the position we were just in, but it was covered by the enemy's illusion. Everyone, be careful with your feet, as the captain, Dumo Jonin, reminded his teammates at this time and looked at the place where the detonating talisman just exploded. This is, with just a glance, the Dachiku Jonin seemed to have discovered something, and stared at the location where the detonating tag had just exploded with a look of surprise. His face was full of surprise. Chapter 204, Shrinking. Everyone, don't panic. The rock ninjas on another battlefield also fell into a brief panic because of Toshir's illusion. However, these rock ninjas, who were used to teamwork, soon began to perform some ninjutsu similar to the earth flow wall under the command of the leading jonin, creating some obstacles such as shelters for themselves, or slowly sinking themselves into the ground to avoid possible plots. It was a close call just now. Fortunately, Toshir's illusion was performed in time, otherwise, I would be in danger at this time. Uchiha, who had just been attacked by the rock ninjas, finally felt relieved. With his strength, if he had been attacked by the opponent's concentrated fire for a long time, it would have been his limit to hold on until now. If Toshir's illusion was not activated, it would be inevitable that he would have casualties next. Is everyone here? There are no casualties. Just after he breathed a sigh of relief, Uchiha looked at the large group of companions gathered in front of him and asked, "You should take care of yourself. There's no problem here." But Toshiro, Hamura, who had just come with Uchiha and Asake to meet up with his companions, was a little concerned about the condition of his lover. Seeing that the other party was not injured, his expression eased slightly. Seeing that the other party was beginning to worry about Toshir's condition, he interrupted and said, "Instead of worrying about his situation, it's better to start the action as soon as possible. When we solve the opponent here, he will be able to relax a lot." "That's right. In that case, let's start the action according to the plan discussed earlier." After saying this, Uchiha looked up at his companions and saw that everyone nodded, indicating that he was ready, and he didn't delay anymore. Start the next round of offensive. It turned out that Toshiro and the others had already discussed it before taking action. After launching the first round of detonation talisman bombing, Toshiro raised a barrier to hide the movement in this stronghold while restricting those rock ninjas within the barrier. Uchiha and his people, with varying numbers of their own people, began to harvest the wounded in the stronghold. At the same time, Toshiro performed a sound illusion to suppress the Iwagakure who had just escaped from the first round of attacks, and to find out the Iwagakure who were hiding on the ground. After completing the two-stage battle plan, they would decide how to deal with the counterattack of the Iwagakure depending on the situation. However, judging from the current situation, Toshiro obviously decided to use the large-scale illusion he prepared as a cover for the third round of offensive. Earth escape middle. Earthquake core fire escape middle. Phoenix balsam flame bomb. As his voice fell, Uchiha and Uchiha used their respective ninjutsu one after another. Uchiha had nothing to say, so he used the earthquake core ninjutsu to force out the Iwagakure who were hiding underground, and Uchiha, at this time, performed the ninjutsu of the Phoenix Balsam Flame Bomb developed by Toshiro. It was just that they did not spit out more than one fire bomb at a time, but one by one, letting these fire bombs filled with fire attribute chakras start bombarding the rock ninjas hiding behind the bunkers. Once these highly compressed fire attribute chakras touched those obstacles, they would often explode with a powerful explosion, and at the same time, a large ball of fire would be produced, making those hiding rock ninjas in a panic. Then they were killed by Yen and Koxia who were waiting on the side, along with their companions. It was not that these rock ninjas did not know how to resist, but at this time, all of them were in an illusion, and their opponents, relying on the blood limit of the Sharingan, knew the surrounding environment very well. What was even more troublesome was that Uchiha Yan would appropriately hide the whereabouts of her own personnel according to her own needs at this time. Although she could not completely control this illusion, under the guidance of Dong Shiliang, she could still control those illusions in a small range. This made those rock ninjas who tried to resist return in vain, and finally lost their lives in vain. Of course, there were also some Iwagakure ninjas who didn't want to sit and wait for death. From time to time, they would sneak attack them from underground. However, things did not go as planned. They were often killed by Uchiha Asaka, who used Chidori's sharp spear before they could get close to their enemies. This playmate of the same age as Toshiro had a very good talent for lightning attributes and could be said to have perfectly mastered the ninjutsu that Toshiro plagiarized. Under the guidance of his companions, he easily killed those Iwagakure ninjas who tried to sneak attack. What should we do? If this drags on, all of us will be finished. Among the Iwagakure ninjas who had gathered, some of them could no longer control their fear and wanted to escape from this place. Don't be ridiculous. If we hide here, we can still survive for a while. Once we go out, we will fall into the illusion and die without knowing how. But just dragging on and waiting to die is not the solution. It was indeed as the other party said. It was okay to hide underground or behind a bunker. Once they showed their bodies, they didn't know where the opponent's attack would come from. At least there are still companions here to take care of them, which is one of the reasons why they have not collapsed directly. As for the other reason, has Captain Tsuchiya not succeeded yet? Looking at his companions again, they were forced out of their bodies by the opponent using their village's ninjutsu, and then killed by those invisible attacks. Some rock ninjas finally couldn't help but start asking, it's not that simple. Since the opponent can perform such a level of illusion, he is not a character that can be easily solved. Instead of expecting Captain Tsuchiya, we might as well think of a way ourselves. As he spoke, the rock ninja's jonin began to make hand seals. Earth escape middle. Earth prison barrier. As the jonin performed the ninjutsu, a semicircular, huge rock cage with a diameter of nearly 20 meters enveloped the surviving rock ninjas. Quick, let's strengthen the defense of this ninjutsu together. When we hold on until Tsuchiya's jonin solves the illusion ninja, we will be saved. In fact, the opponent didn't want to take this kind of passive response method, but if they couldn't see through the opponent's illusion, they would be too passive. Chapter 205 Flaw. As expected, having just been attacked by the detonating talisman, Dumo Jonin was just observing the surrounding situation, but he did not expect that he would discover the flaw in the opponent's illusion. At this moment, he was standing in place, carefully observing the ground in front of him. Under the cold moonlight, although the ground was very dim, he could still observe it clearly with his jonin's eyesight. As his arm moved, the illusion on the ground would also react accordingly, shaking along with his arm. Although this change was very subtle, with his jonin's strength, he could still find it if he observed carefully. Just this slight delay allowed the jonin to see through the essence of the opponent's illusion. Captain, have you found anything? Seeing the opponent's actions, the subordinate asked. Well, I have basically understood the secret of the opponent's illusion. Great, this way. But before he could express his joy, he was interrupted by the other party. I still have to wait for me to test it. It's too early to be happy now. As he spoke, Dumo Jonin raised his head and looked at the bright moon in the sky. Is this the medium through which the other party casts the illusion? Following his action, his two subordinates also looked up at the bright moon in the sky, looking thoughtful. No one who can become a jonin is a fool. With such an obvious hint, how could they not understand the principle of the other party's illusion? Is it a projection illusion realized through the bright moon? Yes, it should be so. As for whether it is exactly like this, we will know after trying it. While answering his subordinates' questions, the jonin Tsuchiya's hands were not idle. Earth-style, rock cannon. A ball of refined earth attribute chakra was spit out by him, and it turned into a table-sized stone in midair, flying towards the bright moon in the sky. It's not that easy. With this stone bullet, it flew a distance of dozens of meters and hit the bright moon. The bright moon just shook and returned to its original appearance. It was as if nothing had happened. It was just that on the ground, the street scene of Konoha night market, which was difficult to distinguish between true and false, had some changes at this time. Just like the surface of the water was disturbed, circles of ripples spread throughout the base, revealing their original appearance from time to time, making the camp look like a painting reflected in the water and wrinkled by the breeze. As the ripples returned to calm, the night market of Konoha once again enveloped the land. "You're hiding nearby, how daring!" Although it was a bit disappointing that he didn't break the opponent's illusion, it was not without gain. The illusion just changed slightly, allowing this well-prepared ninja to find Tawashiro's hiding place. But as the illusion returned to normal, they lost the opponent's trace again. But it didn't matter. If they could disrupt the illusion for the first time, they could do it for the second and third time. The opponent could no longer hide in front of them. Ryoku, if you can't find the opponent's trace again, you can kill yourself. He was quite dissatisfied with this perception ninja. After such a long time, he still hadn't caught the opponent's true body, which really made him a little disappointed. "Yes, I will definitely not let the captain down." The perception ninja named Ryoku was really under great pressure at this time. Just now, they were surrounded by the opponent's chakra, which seriously interfered with his perception. He completely lost the opponent's trace, but now with the glimpse just now, he has some confidence in finding the opponent's hiding place. His teammates were not idle at this time, but fired rock cannons one after another to disrupt the opponent's illusion. On the one hand, it was to help their companions perceive the opponent's position, and on the other hand, it was to remind their companions that they hoped they could hold on for a longer time. But they didn't know that their companions had to choose to be turtles at this time because of this illusion and the pressure of those Uchiha ninjas. At this time, they had already wrapped themselves up with a large earth escape barrier. "I hope that they can make a breakthrough here so that they can go and rescue them." This illusion of the opponent is really too troublesome. Even if you find a flaw, there is no way to remove it. Damn, the subordinates who were attacking the sky couldn't help complaining at this time. Although their captain discovered the flaw of this illusion through the explosion of those detonating talismans, the opponent was really cunning and actually tampered with the medium that launched the illusion. They couldn't break the illusion in one fell swoop. "Finally found you." Taking advantage of the abnormal fluctuations of this illusion, they finally found Meixiang, who had moved to another position. They all stepped forward and surrounded the opponent. They looked ready to take action. "It seems that the problem with this illusion is really big. You actually found the flaw so easily." Looking at the three people standing on the opposite side, Meixiang was also a little helpless. At this time, he still had to maintain the barrier, which was really not suitable for a head-on confrontation with the opponent. If he just stood still and cast an illusion, it would be fine. If he fought fiercely with the opponent, this barrier would not be able to be maintained. At the same time, he did not expect that the illusion he developed would have such an obvious loophole. Moreover, this loophole was discovered by the opponent because he used the detonating talisman. Who can he go to for justice? In fact, the illusion he developed is already very good and has considerable practical value. He used his own chakra to create a moon-like light source, and projected the prepared illusion into the barrier. In order to make the illusion more realistic, he also applied some tactile illusions, and combined with his own chakra camouflage, the illusion was almost indistinguishable from the real thing. In order to prevent the opponent from discovering the secret of his illusion, he also cast some misleading illusions to hide the secret of the illusion. He didn't expect that it was because of his detonating talisman that disrupted the chakra nearby, causing the opponent to break the illusion. He was also without his teammates to cover him. Otherwise, this fleeting flaw would be impossible for the opponent to see through at a glance. Just like the rock ninja on another battlefield, under the pressure of Z and others, he could only passively defend, and had no time to observe his surroundings. Chapter 206 Efforts. Located in the rock ninja base in the land of grass, covered by a barrier, in a bustling night market that shouldn't be here, a huge earth escape rock barrier stands in it. It seems that the situation over there is not very good. The surrounding illusions continued to ripple, making Uchiha Yan begin to realize that Meixiang was in some trouble at this time, and couldn't help but frown. "It's just that our side." Looking at the tortoise-shell defense opposite them, they were like a mouse pulling a tortoise and had nowhere to start. In order to save their lives, these rock ninjas were really willing to spend money. Chakra seemed to have no physical strength, and they frantically strengthened their defense. The thickness of this earth escape barrier was increased to nearly 5 meters. They just tried it once, and they had no desire to continue trying. Even Akiyasaka, after trying the Chidori sharp spear once, did not continue to try. She is only 14 years old now, and it is good enough that she can skillfully control this ninjutsu. In addition, she just tried to use this ninjutsu to kill those rock ninjas who wanted to sneak attack them. It is really too much. It seems that we can only wait until Dong Shilang makes progress, and then he will break this barrier. But in this way, won't we appear incompetent again? Gritting her teeth, Miss Akayan's temper also came up. She must continue to try. I don't believe that they can't even do this little thing without Dong Shilang, Asagi, Longyuo. Everyone work together and think of a way to break this tortoise shell. Although he held his breath, Akayan was not stupid. If he did it alone, he would not be able to solve the problem. Even if he died of exhaustion, he still had to rely on his companions to have a chance. Okay, let's work together. Yes, together, we can succeed. Right. We can't wait for Tawashiro to do everything for us. Not only Uchiha Hamura, but even Tetsu and the others had no intention of giving up at this time. No one wants to be the one who always holds back, especially those Uchiha who have opened the Sharingan. Everyone's pride is engraved in their bones. Just as Tawashiro's companions were working hard to not be the one who holds back, the battle on Tawashiro's side also began. Brownstone, let's attack together. Ryoku, you come to cover the two of us. Keep an eye on our status. As soon as he saw Tawashiro's figure, Captain Tsuchiya began to attack impatiently. However, he had not lost his mind yet, and he did not forget to remind his companions, don't look him in the eye. After saying this, he rushed towards Tawashiro, intending to fight with him in physical skills. With the illusion skills shown by the opponent, if they were fighting in a medium and long-range battle with the opponent, it would be troublesome if the opponent cast some illusions. It would be better to force the opponent to fight in close combat, so that this dangerous opponent has no time to perform illusions. This is also the best choice to deal with illusion ninjas, but in this case, it is inevitable to face the opponent's Sharingan. However, there are 3 people on their side, so there should be no problem. But many times, plans can never keep up with the speed of change, just like now. Puff. The sound of a sharp blade piercing through the flesh came from behind the Tsuchiya Jonin. Why? Looking at the ninja sword that pierced through his chest, Ryoku seemed to have thought of something, and his expression became extremely unwilling. But at this time, everything was too late. The opponent just stood behind him, too close. Coupled with the sudden attack, he could not avoid the opponent's sneak attack at all. Is it an illusion? As the rock ninja named Brownstone pulled out the ninja sword from his teammate, Ryoku could only fall to the ground helplessly, leaving behind an unwilling sigh. But until his death, he never figured out how Brownstone was hit by the illusion, when there was obviously no abnormality in the opponent's chakra fluctuations. You damn Konoha ninja, go to hell. After attacking from behind and killing his companion, Brownstone did not stop his actions, but rushed towards his captain with a crazy expression. While launching the attack, he was still shouting loudly, completely unaware that he was now under an illusion. Brownstone, you bastard, why don't you wake up? Do you know what you have done? Faced with this sudden change, the Tsuchiya Jonin had no time to grieve before he had to face the attack of his companion. He could only passively block the opponent's reckless attack, while roaring angrily. But he also knew that this would not be able to solve the opponent's illusion. It's all your fault. He didn't forget to roar at Tawashiro in the middle, because he was too emotional. At this time, veins on his forehead burst out. He never thought that things would suddenly turn out like this. Obviously, the 3 of them had been cautious all the time and were not under the opponent's illusion at all. But looking at the Brownstone, it was obvious that they had been tricked. It was just that the opponent's tactics were too clever, and the 3 of them didn't notice it at all. Correct answer. But unfortunately there is no reward. Facing the enemy's eyes that wanted to break his skin and pull out his tendons, Dong Shilang did not waver at all. He had seen such eyes many times. It could no longer have any effect on him. At this time, he was leisurely, took out the emerald green flute that he had just put away, put it to his lips, and began to play. The brown stone controlled by him was obviously stronger than this Tsuchiya Jonin. If he didn't help, as long as that Tsuchiya Jonin was willing to pay the price, it would probably take only 10 rounds to control the situation. He saw Dong Shilang's actions from the corner of his eye, and a feeling of despair enveloped Tsuchiya's heart. The enemy's illusion was too terrifying. He actually controlled the brown stone silently, killed Ryoki in one fell swoop, and was able to cast an illusion again while controlling the opponent. With the opponent's attainment in illusion, it would be impossible to remove the illusion without the cooperation of his companions. It seems that he is really doomed this time. The fact is just as that Tsuchiya Jonin thought. As the melodious flute sounded again by Dong Shilang, not much time had passed, and only 3 bodies were left on the spot. And Dong Shilang's figure disappeared. Chapter 207 Illusion. We finally got rid of these rock ninjas. Yeah, these guys are really tenacious. On the messy battlefield, Uchiha Hamura and Asaka finally had a break. After relaxing, they started chatting. From the broken walls and fallen bodies in front of them, it can be seen that they had just gone through a hard effort to break through the rock ninja's defense. Although they won, they paid a lot of physical strength. It's good to be able to complete this mission without any major casualties. You two should stop complaining. Let's take a look at the wounded first. As for Toshiro, Uchiha Tetsu interrupted their conversation, just looked at the state of his companions, and hesitated for a moment. He didn't know whether he should go to help or just stay where he was to rest, so as not to cause trouble to the other party. In their current state, they were out of ammunition and food, and even chakra was not much left to break through the rock ninja's defense. I've solved it here too. Just when Uchiha Tetsu was hesitating whether to go to support Toshiro, a figure walked out of the illusion and said in a gentle voice, "Hey, has Toshiro solved the trouble over there? You're really a pervert." While maintaining such a large barrier, you can also maintain this large-scale illusion. That's not all. You even solved the rock ninja who used to cause trouble for you. Uchiha Hamura replied angrily. It was obviously when I was in the clan school that I was the first to refine chakra, and those teachers also said that I have outstanding talent. I didn't expect that the gap between me and the other party is so big now. It's really unacceptable to think about it. Thanks to this multiple illusion, they have been solved. As he spoke, the illusion of the entire stronghold began to recover to its original appearance little by little as Toshiro lifted the illusion. Senior Dong Shilang's illusion is really amazing. I wish I could have this ability in the future. This way I can better protect the village and my companions. At this time, Uchiha Shizui, who was only 8 years old, looked at Dong Shilang with envy. Although he was also very talented in illusion, he still had a gap with his predecessor in terms of chakra. Even when he grows up in the future, it is estimated that it will be difficult to reach the level of senior Dong Shilang. You are so good at talking. With Shizui's talent, it is only a matter of time for him to reach my current level. What you have to do now is to stop thinking about those things, eat well, and grow up quickly. I didn't expect that one day I would become the object of Shizui's envy in terms of illusion. You know, the other party will be known as the strongest illusion ninja in the future. Thinking about it, he is still a little proud. The illusion he just performed can be said to be the culmination of his research on illusions over the years. With the help of this barrier, he used his own chakra to create a light source and projected the illusion he prepared into the barrier. Those light sources are not just simple projections, but also a medium for visual illusions. At the same time, some tactile illusions are added to mislead the enemies in the environment. Combined with his own chakra, this illusion becomes more real. In order to prevent the opponent from finding a flaw and easily breaking his illusion, he specially processed the glowing chakra source. Using the characteristics of water-attributed chakra, it is like a water mirror, allowing it to quickly recover after being attacked. It can also become a medium to project his eye power when needed. For example, the brownstone ninja just now was controlled by him with the Sharingan illusion when the opponent was constantly attacking the water mirror. In the end, he suddenly attacked under the control of Dong Shilang, killing the perception ninja in one fell swoop, and entangled the earth mound ninja at the same time, laying the foundation for his victory. Okay, although the matter has come to an end, it is not over yet. Yan, Zen'oxia. You two come with me to take care of the wounded. Zenlongnuo, you clean up the battlefield and search the entire stronghold. They spent a lot of money to attack this stronghold this time. If they can't get some of it back, they will lose a lot. When you think about the detonating talismans that were used, each of them is the result of Dong Shilang's hard work. With the first wave of sneak attacks, they have all been reduced to ashes. How can Dong Shilang not bleed in his heart? It's all the fault of those bastards who issued the tasks. After complaining in his heart, Dong Shilang began to command his friends and made them busy again. Although their sneak attack this time was successful, and most of the opponent's living forces were wiped out in one fell swoop. However, in the subsequent battle to clear out the remaining enemies, some of their fellow tribesmen were inevitably injured. Fortunately, with the care of Yen and others, there were no casualties. You really know how to order people around, miss. Stop being so sarcastic. I don't think you want to stay in this damn place any longer. HMPH. Although he complained, Uchiha Hamore's movements were quite agile. Dong Shiro knew that the other party was just talking. This was also a way for the other party to slow down his nerves. After such a big battle, no one can keep a normal mentality. Even if he was not injured, the mental pressure was still everywhere. Yes, it was not only Uchiha Hamore who was not injured, even Shizui and his fellow tribesmen who opened the Sharingan did not suffer any serious injuries. For Uchiha with the Sharingan, let alone other things, just in terms of dodging ability, each one has full buffs. Even if they were injured, most of them were left to save those fellow tribesmen who did not open their eyes. As for Uchiha Shizui's opening of his eyes, isn't this a matter of course? This guy had already opened his eyes when he joined Dong Shiro's team. And it was a double Magatama. Senior, what should we do with these people? Just when Tawashiro was bandaging the wounds of his fellow tribesmen, Uchiha Shizui came over and looked at Tawashiro with an embarrassed look on his face. At the same time, he pointed to the distance. The people he was talking about were the wounded left behind by the Rock Ninja. Although the Rock Ninja was defeated, some of the wounded were still left behind. Most of these people survived the first attack of the detonating talisman. Some of them lost their mobility due to broken limbs, or fell into a coma, and had no fighting power at all. There were about 10 people. Chapter 208 Plunder. Looking at the slightly embarrassed kid in front of him, Tawashiro couldn't help but smile. From the other person's expression, it was clear that this genius boy was kind. And the reason why this kind of thing was thrown to him to deal with was probably because of Tetsu and Longnuo's idea. Otherwise, how could Shizui have a headache about this kind of thing? Well, since they are prisoners, those who are taller than you, all be killed. For the rest, use the family's sky fire prison to seal their chakra. Right. You know this ninjutsu? Right. After years of war, it was not only Konoha that had young children on the battlefield. The land of Earth was no less bad, but the situation was much better than that of Konoha. As for the sky fire prison, this was a ninjutsu used by the Uchiha guard to seal those criminal ninjas. The effect was similar to the fire style sky prison and the grass country prison in the original work. It also prevented ninjas from using chakra. As for why he let these children go, Tawashiro was still influenced by his previous life. Even now, he still felt that it was unacceptable to let some children under the age of 10 bear the consequences of war. This was one of the few things he insisted on. Otherwise, what was the difference between him and those beasts devoured by hatred? Yes, I have learned this ninjutsu. Facing Tawashiro's plan, although he still felt a little bit reluctant, he also knew that this was the best result for those people, and they could not retreat with prisoners. There was nothing to complain about. What a genius! Compared with the predecessors, it is still far behind. Facing Tawashiro's praise, Shizui did not have any self-esteem. After a humble word, he went to execute Tawashiro's order with a gloomy expression. Did I do something evil? Looking at the other party's small figure going away, Tawashiro couldn't help but think that the other party was still a child of a few years old. Would it be bad to let him do such a thing? What's up? Still can't break through this barrier? Just as Shizui was struggling, a group of Iwagakure gathered outside the barrier. These were Tawashiro and his team, who gathered together after they discovered something was wrong after attacking this stronghold. Although Toshiro and his team were not slow, the entire battle took less than 20 minutes. But the nearby Iwagakure were not incompetent either, and they soon noticed something was wrong with the stronghold. Then a team came to check the situation, and after some investigation, they sent out a distress signal. This attracted a large number of Iwagakure. Takemisu, your team was the first to discover something unusual. Didn't you find anything else? No, Lord Akechi. After we discovered something was wrong with the camp, we rushed over to check, but the stronghold had been wrapped in a barrier. Facing this Iwagakure named Akechi, Takemitsu, as a special jonin, did not dare to be negligent. The other party was a member of the shadow guard of Lord Tsuchikage, and he could not afford to just say anything. Is that so? Is there anyone who knows barrier technique at this scene? We need to quickly break through this barrier so that we can check the situation in the base. Although he didn't have much hope, he still asked the ninjas present. There were more than a dozen teams of rock ninjas gathered together, and he didn't know if there were any people with special talents among them. The scene fell into silence for a while. How could such relatively advanced knowledge of barrier technique be accessible to these frontline ninjas? If there was such a legacy, they wouldn't have to risk their lives in such a ghost place. In this case, we can only use large-scale earth escape ninjutsu to try to destroy this barrier. Faced with such things as barriers, rock ninjas were still not very good. As long as they were willing to spend a lot of chakra, they could still destroy these barriers. But in this way, it would require a large-scale change of terrain, which was a bit of a loss. But at this time, there was no time to care so much. Just when the rock ninjas outside the barrier were preparing to join forces to change the terrain and destroy the barrier, Toshiro also noticed it. We have almost finished packing. How did you get? If we don't leave, the rock ninjas outside will invite us to have breakfast. Looking at his companions in front of him, Dong Shilang chatted and asked lightly. This is something he is very concerned about. Well, the harvest is not bad. This is a temporary supply point for rock ninjas. There are many consumables such as weapons, medicinal materials, and detonating tags. Although it is a bit messy and cannot be counted carefully, there are quite a lot. The ones who answered Dong Shilang were Long Huoans who went to search the camp. Although there was no specific number, Dong Shilang knew from their faces that his group of people did not lose out this time. It was also Dong Shilang and his good luck. Not to mention those weapons, they are hard and not afraid of explosion. But those medicines, detonating tags, etc., if it weren't for the rock ninjas' careful collection, it is estimated that their harvest this time would be greatly reduced. In this case, there is nothing to miss. Ninja method. Summoning technique. Stir up his own chakra and use the summoning technique. Toshiro, can you please stop summoning me to work before dawn? Although I am not a human, sleep quality is also very important. Before a huge cloud of spiritual white smoke dispersed, a noisy complaint came out. It was the mountain eagle that Toshiro had not summoned for a long time. Since Toshiro started to work as a scout, he asked his brother-in-law Akihiro to sign a spiritual contract with it. Let the other party be responsible for the exchanges between the camp and the village. This is also the few things he can do to help his relatives. Since he came to the grass country camp, for some reason, whether it is the reconnaissance mission with the help of the mountain eagle or the exchange of materials between the camp and the village, he has nothing to do. Toshiro, who had some guesses in his heart, could only leave this relatively easy task to his relatives. Don't complain. When you return to the camp, catch some prey yourself and we will help you cook it. This guy's appetite is really too much for him to feed. It's better to let him hunt by himself. Don't he have so many companions? It's a pity to have so many tools unused. It just so happens that I summoned them out this time just to facilitate retreat, and these hitchhikers still have to contribute a little bit. Chapter 209 Return to Camp. Earth Style, Great Earth Flow Cutting Technique. Outside the barrier, a large group of rock ninjas, standing in specific positions, formed seals together, mobilized their own chakra, and performed this earth attribute ninjutsu. As these people pressed their hands on the ground where the barrier was originally located, The entire piece of land wrapped around the barrier began to slowly rise. When it rose to about 10 meters, the entire raised land was neatly split in half from the middle and tilted to the left and right. This is the conventional way for rock ninjas to deal with barriers. Most barriers need a point of support when they are cast, and this point is usually the ground. Although they, rock ninjas, may not have much talent in breaking barriers, they are experts in changing terrain. As the land split in half from the middle, the weight of the land itself tilted to both sides, and the barrier that was originally intact began to fluctuate violently and tear. Even the square shape began to become irregular due to the huge force transmitted from the foundation, as if it would break at any time. Crack, crack, crack. With a sound like glass breaking, cracks began to spread on the barrier. It was like a frozen lake in winter, and a huge rock was thrown into it, and cracks inevitably appeared. Then, bang, a crisp sound came. The barrier is broken. Everyone get ready. Witnessing the shattering of the barrier, the Akashi Jonin began to arrange the rock ninjas to prepare for emergencies. They didn't know the situation in the base, but they knew that the situation was not good. It's always right to be careful. But before they could enter the base, a violent gust of wind swept the land near the base, blowing them all over the place. Damn, I'm late. Akashi, who tried to keep himself steady, used his arms to block the oncoming strong wind. He glanced at the base and realized that he was late despite his haste. This summoned beast. Was it done by the Uchiha team that offered a bounty? Looking at the huge bird that was raising a strong wind and flying high, Akashi did not chase after it. Although he was valued by the Tsuchikage and taught the essence of the light and heavy rock Shizui, he could fly in the air. However, compared with this flying animal with chakra, there is still a certain gap in speed. He can't keep up with the opponent's speed at all. Finally, I completed this mission. Although it took a little time, it's not a big deal. Toshiro left the ground before the opponent destroyed the barrier. Sitting on the back of the mountain eagle, he looked at the rock ninja on the ground and sighed. If he hadn't spent a lot of money this time and bought a lot of detonating tags, he would have cast this barrier technique. It is basically impossible to complete this mission. It is estimated that once the mission begins, those rock ninjas who like to fight in groups will come to support this base in an endless stream. At that time, even if I turn on the sage mode, I guess I can't hold on for long. Not to mention those fellow tribesmen behind him. A gust of wind blew, and Dong Shilang and his group landed in the Uchiha camp before dawn. It's time for breakfast. Dong Shilang, don't forget your promise. Just after getting off the back of the mountain eagle, the other party said impatiently, and saliva dripped from his mouth. When I think of the delicious food grilled by humans, and then think about the sea fish I usually eat, there is simply no comparison. Got it. Since you're already hungry, why don't you go catch the prey? This way we can also get in touch with each other. Rolling his eyes, although a little unhappy that the other party was eating and drinking for free, who told me that I don't know how to grill meat. Besides, the other party's appetite is really not worth it. Its current size, wingspan is close to 50 meters, and its height is over 20 meters. The appetite for one meal is very huge, and it doesn't care about this consumption at all. Without saying a word, he went to catch prey. Looking at the figure of the mountain eagle going away, Dong Shilang envied the other party. Although it is just a sea eagle, it can do whatever it wants. Eat when it wants to eat, sleep when it wants to sleep. As a human, I have a lot of troubles. The next thing is up to you. I still have to go to the tribe leader. Although I completed the task this time, it was beyond the task time. Although there is the protection of the family, there will not be any big trouble, but it is not good for me to just ignore it. I still have to say hello. As he said, Dong Shilang raised his leg and walked towards the largest tent in the camp. Excuse me. After announcing himself at the door of the tent, Dong Shilang paused, lifted the curtain and entered the tent. Inside the tent, a young man sat in the place where Uchiha Shigeyama used to sit. He was the former young chief of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Fugaku. The former chief Shigeyama had died a year ago, and was replaced by the young Uchiha Fugaku as the chief. At this time, he was only 25 years old, and could be considered young and promising. However, his slightly old face did not have the slightest youthful vigor. Through the dim light in the tent, It could be seen that the other party's face was full of fatigue, coupled with deep eye bags and 2 lines on his face, making him look like a middle-aged man in his 40s. It turns out that Toshiro is here. Haven't had breakfast yet? Let's have a simple meal together here. Seeing Toshiro coming in, Uchiha Fugaku forced himself to greet him. He was busy all night yesterday and had no time to rest properly. The long-lasting war, the casualties of the family, the pressure of the village, all of these things he had to deal with carefully, not daring to be negligent in the slightest. However, when facing Toshiro, he still showed a forced smile, and at the same time said to Uchiha Mikoto next to him, "Mikoto, go prepare some breakfast. Toshiro and I have something to discuss." As the saying goes, no one comes to the temple for no reason. As soon as the other party came in, he knew that there must be something to ask him, but he didn't know whether it was good or bad. "Thank you, Madam Mikoto." Since the other party was so enthusiastic, Toshiro had nothing to refuse, and sat down openly. He was just like this, straightforward, and didn't like the trick of giving way to each other. As the wife of the clan leader, Uchiha Mikoto didn't say much, just nodded at Toshiro as a greeting. Then he left the tent to prepare. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210 News. Uchiha Mikoto, who is at the front line, is not dressed like a housewife in the original novel. She gathered her long hair and tied it into a ponytail. She wore a Konoha forehead protector, a green ninja vest, and a ninja sword on her waist. She lacked the gentleness and virtuousness in the original novel, and the whole person looked heroic. I wonder if Toshiro's mission went smoothly. As soon as Uchiha Mikoto left, Fugaku asked about Toshiro's mission. He knew about the mission that Toshiro and his team were carrying out. Before the mission, Toshiro had no intention of hiding the mission from the family, and directly informed the family of the mission information. As for confidentiality, he didn't care. Even if we take a step back, don't all of the ninjas in the family do this? It's not just him, Uchiha, who does this. This mission went relatively smoothly, and there were no irreparable casualties. Really? This is really good news. What he fears most now is the casualties of family members. Since he inherited the title of clan leader, the pressure from the village on the family has become greater, causing the number of casualties of family ninjas to rise sharply. Although they are all working hard to end the war, the pressure on them, the Uchiha, is too great. Although the mission objectives have been achieved and there were no casualties, but, as he spoke, Toshiro paused, wanting to see Fugaku's expression. He was really worried about his new clan leader. What if he was also a schizophrenic patient brainwashed by the will of fire? He would have a headache. Don't worry, no casualties are already the best news. If there are any problems, the family can prepare in advance. Facing him, the newly appointed Uchiha clan leader, the Konoha high-level officials let him see the cruelty of war. As long as there are no large-scale casualties among the clan members, he can take it easy. This mission will take a long time, and I think there will be some gossip in the village. Seeing that the other party's attitude was okay, Dong Shilang had no intention of playing dumb, and directly explained the situation of this mission to Uchiha Fugaku in detail. I know the mission you are carrying out, but has the mission exceeded the time limit? I know. I will explain the situation to the village. For ninjas like them who are incorporated into the Konoha guard force, he, who has been promoted to the captain of the guard team, can still say a few words. Unlike the family members in the mission team, he, as the captain of the guard team, has no say in the missions of these people. Seeing the other party's statement, Dong Shilang will be relieved. It seems that this clan leader is barely qualified for the time being, and he still knows how to protect family members. Well, this is okay, but Dong Shilang's strength surprises me even more. For this mission, many people in the family thought that your mission might fail, and there would be a lot of casualties. I didn't expect that you all returned safely. This is really beyond people's expectations, but it is also something to be happy about. Looking at Tawashiro, who was sitting down, Fugaku's face was full of relief. The other party was the disciple of his uncle, so he naturally had a close connection with their family. The other party was powerful, which was the best news for the current family. But I wonder if something bad happened? Seeing the expression on the other party's face change, Tawashiro opened his mouth to ask, I just don't know who died again. Uchiha Shigemasa died. Tawashiro's expression was stiff when he heard the news, and he didn't come back to his senses for a while. Did teacher Shigemasa also die in the battle? After a long time, Dong Qilang finally uttered such a voice, which sounded like sentimental and lamenting. Then he sat in his seat without making any sound. He was just in a daze. To be honest, he and Uchiha Shigemasa had been together for less than 2 years. Since the last Chunin exam, their entire team was incorporated into the security department. And Uchiha Shigemasa went to the battlefield with the former clan leader. The feelings between the two sides were not that deep, but suddenly, he received the news of the other party's death, and his heart still rose a little. At the same time, the scene of the other party teaching him, yearnings, kept echoing in his mind. Although the time they spent together was not long, the memories left were still unforgettable. Whether it was the earnest teachings to himself, the patient guidance of, or the love and care for Yen, they all left a deep impression on him. Unexpectedly, when he returned to the camp this time, he received the news of the other party's death. With teacher Shigemasa's strength, how could he suddenly die in battle? Although sad, Tawashiro had not lost his mind and began to ask about the specific situation. Hearing Tawashiro's question, Uchiha Fugaku did not answer immediately, but closed his eyes tightly and remained motionless for a long time. It's my problem. In the battle the day before yesterday, in order to save me. After closing his eyes and adjusting for a long time, Uchiha Fugaku spoke, and his expression became sad. It turned out that in the last battle, Uchiha Fugaku, as the clan leader, could not control himself for a while because of the heavy casualties of his fellow clansmen, and went deep into the enemy camp. It was Uchiha Shigemasa who risked his life to cover him, so he was able to escape. Shigemasa, who covered him, finally returned to the camp, but he was already on his deathbed. Is that so? Hearing such a result, Tawashiro was just in a trance for a while. Having been active on the battlefield for a long time, he has seen a lot of such things. Although Uchiha Shigemasa is his teacher, it is not surprising that there is such an ending. Who is the murderer? There was no excessive sadness, nor did he suffer a mental breakdown after hearing the news, let alone opening the Meixiang. Tawashiro just looked at Fugaku seriously and asked this question. The only thing he could do for teacher Shigemasa was revenge. As for the orphans left behind, I think Uchiha Fugaku, as the clan leader, could make arrangements for them. The other party was an elite of the Iwagakure ninja and was killed on the spot when Uchiha Shigemasa was seriously injured by the other party again. He killed the other party, which could be regarded as revenge for himself, but the damage caused by the other party was too fatal. Hearing this, Tawashiro was a little disappointed. He didn't expect that he couldn't even avenge his teacher with his own hands. This is really Chapter 211 Promotion. Spring of the 46th year of Konoha Village, Hokage Building. Inside the office, in view of Uchiha Tawashiro's outstanding performance in the battlefield of the Land of Grass, I hereby issue him a Jonin certificate as a commendation. Yes, I will definitely not disappoint you and work hard for Konoha's victory. Tawashiro took the Jonin certificate handed over by the Hokage, and his face showed a look of gratitude. In fact, he was constantly complaining in his heart that he had performed so many high-risk missions over the years, but he had always been an ordinary Chunin. Although Chunin could also lead a team to complete a mission, what he led was not an ordinary mission team. It was a scout squadron composed of Uchiha. Although his organization was in the security force, this was too outrageous. Tawashiro, can I call you that? It's my honor, Hokage-sama. Although he was already MMP in his stomach, he still had to do the superficial work well. Besides, this kind of superficial work was quite familiar to him in his previous life. Now he had no pressure to do it. He took a deep breath, then exhaled the smoke in his chest, making his whole body shrouded in lavender smoke. Sarutobi Hiruzen, wearing a white divine robe and a Hokage hat, spoke again. I have seen your performance on the battlefield of Grass Country, and I hope you can continue to work hard in the future. At the same time, you can better implement the will of fire, better protect the village and everyone. Yes, I will definitely live up to your trust. Go down, then I'll take my leave first. As he spoke, Toshiro glanced at the Konoha F4 in the office again, nodded as a greeting, and went out. You can't let people say that he, Uchiha Toshiro, is rude. After Toshiro left, someone in the office spoke, and the tone was not very good. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied with the appointment of the third Hokage, HMPH, Hiruzen. You shouldn't appoint a 14-year-old Uchiha as a Jonin. This is inconsistent with the teacher's policy of suppressing the Uchiha, and judging from the boy's previous performance, he doesn't seem to believe in the will of fire. If you do this, won't the Uchiha have another chance to gain fame? The person who spoke was none other than Shimura Danzo, who was known as the Pot Shadow. A 14-year-old Jonin. It was also a pretty good gimmick, which could gain a lot of fame for the Uchiha, especially in this war period. Their common teacher, the second Hokage, had been on guard against those Uchiha all his life. He wanted to learn from his teacher, but he was unwilling to be the man behind the Hokage, so he followed suit. And that Uchiha Bito, you actually let Jiraiya's disciple take that kid as his apprentice. What are you doing? Are you completely abolishing the policies set by the teacher? While speaking, Shimura Danzo glanced at the two companions next to him. Yes, Sarutobi, you are too relaxed in dealing with Uchiha like this. Don't forget what the teacher said. Those Uchiha are born evil. At the suggestion of her companion, Uchiha Koharu, who also had no good feelings towards Uchiha, spoke up, and as soon as she spoke, she went straight to the core of the problem. Her attitude towards Uchiha was similar to that of Shimura Danzo next to her, and she believed in her teacher's words without a doubt. A clear attitude. At this time, among the four people present, only Mito Kato-en did not speak. Seeing his three companions looking at him together, he pushed his eyes on the bridge of his nose and expressed his own opinion. I think this matter, let's wait and see. Let's see. Humphrey, perfunctory. The other three people obviously expected the answer of their companion, but they didn't expect that the other party would be like a fence-sitter on this matter. Shimura Danzo and Uchiha Koharu were quite dissatisfied with this answer. As the Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen was quite satisfied with the answer of his companion, otherwise it would be difficult for him to make his own decision alone. Okay, Koharu and Danzo, this is to appease the Uchiha to a certain extent. Now is a war time, we need their strength. As for Obito, he has inherited the will of fire very well, and he is a very good bridge to ease the relationship between us and the Uchiha. When the ninjas were divided into classes, he considered for a long time before assigning Uchiha Obito to Minato Namikaze. As a Hokage, Minato knew what it meant to accept an Uchiha as a disciple. Now is the time when the Uchiha needs to fight to the death. If we don't give them some hope, it will be difficult. That Uchiha Obito is the most suitable candidate I can find. As for Uchiha Toshiro, although the other party just said it beautifully, with his life experience, how could he easily believe the other party's lies? It's just the same reason as before, it's necessary to appease the Uchiha now. Forget about Uchiha Obito. I admit that such a fool, as Minato's disciple, is not a real threat, but this Toshiro is different. You must have seen his mission experiences. It's not appropriate to let him become a young Jonin. This Uchiha Toshiro is not as easy to deceive as the other Uchiha. It's not good news to let him become a 14-year-old Jonin. This is inconsistent with the policy implemented by the village. Don't worry, I have other arrangements. At this time, Mizuto Kitagawa played a good role as a supporting role and asked his companions about their doubts. Well, Namikaze Minato is now the leader of the team, but he has been hindered by this. I plan to let Hutei Kakashi be promoted to Jonin. In this way, he can lead the team to carry out missions and free Minato. It is a waste of the opponent's combat power to always lead students. This is a good idea. Doing this can be said to kill two birds with one stone. Not only can he free Minato Namikaze, but with Hutei Kakashi, this 14-year-old Uchiha Jonin won't be so eye-catching. If I remember correctly, The child was only 12 years old. Hiratsun is still very experienced. Hearing this, Maito Kato-en and Yuten Koharu both nodded with satisfaction. Even Yuten Koharu, who has a hot temper, has to admit that this is a pretty good method. Unlike Danzo, he doesn't know how to consider the overall situation at all, and only knows how to use his power to suppress others. Chapter 212 Encounter. After leaving the Hokage building, Dongshiro was fascinated by the bright sunshine and wanted to go home to rest. He was exhausted physically and mentally after such a long mission. He had reached his limit. Well, it's a happy decision. The new promotion to Jonin did not cause any ripples in his heart. He came to a Kairaku ramen and ordered a bowl of bone soup ramen that suited his taste to fill his stomach. Senior Dongshiro, long time no see. Just as he lifted the door curtain and was about to enter the store, a slightly childish female voice called him. It's Lin. Looking back, it was Nohara Lin. At this time, she was alone on the street, and seemed to be buying something. Really free. I haven't seen you in the village for a long time. Are you coming back to rest this time? Yes, rest for 2 days. Dongshiro did not show too much enthusiasm for this white moonlight of Obito. Obito, that idiot, didn't follow you today? It's really rare. While sitting down and ordering food, Toshiro chatted with the other party. Unexpectedly, the other party also ordered a bowl of ramen for some reason, and it seemed that he didn't have breakfast either. Obito has to prepare for the Chunin exam, so, excuse me, senior. Looking at the little girl with 2 purple oil paints on her cheeks, Toshiro couldn't help but sigh. Such a gentle and soft girl, no wonder Obito would go crazy for her. I don't know, Rin. What do you think of Obito? This idiot. Instead of caring about Obito's participation in the Chunin exam this time, Toshiro asked such a question. You know, that idiot, but he regards you as everything in his life. While eating the ramen in his hand, Toshiro asked this question, and secretly observed the changes in the other party's expression. Looking at the silent Nohara Rin who was stirring the noodles in the bowl with chopsticks, Toshiro couldn't help but complain. Who was the smart one who came up with the 3-person team model, making these little brats so smart, and also making them all love-struck? Obito and I grew up together and are good friends and companions. Obito is kind, enthusiastic, and has ideals. Now he is willing to work hard to realize his ideals. I am very happy for him. I think he and I will be friends for life. It seemed that she had been thinking about it for a long time, and Nohara Rin finally said such words. After saying these words, she felt like she had unloaded a burden. She was not blind. How could she not know about Obito's enthusiasm for her? When they were young, they could be said to be good playmates, but as they grew up, she, who was originally precocious, had long noticed that the other party had feelings for her that went beyond friendship. On the one hand, she was also a little proud. At the same time, she did not reject this feeling, but some of the other party's usual behaviors were really hard to describe. She did not want to lose this sincere friendship, and became a little hesitant for a while, fearing that she would accidentally hurt this innocent companion. At this time, when she was asked by Toshiro, she did not hide her thoughts and expressed them. These things had been weighing on her mind for a long time. Now that she had said them, she felt relieved. Is that so? This idiot asked for it. It should be said that everything was his own fault. This idiot, after Kakashi graduated early, he had a chance, but this idiot's poor performance made this opportunity slip away. Rin, so you are here. I've been looking for you for a long time. Hey, brother Toshiro is here too. At this time, Obito ran outside the ramen shop. After seeing Nohara Rin, he braked suddenly. Only then did he see Toshiro's figure. Ah, from your appearance, I know you haven't had breakfast yet. I'll treat you this time. Looking at this kid who was holding his knees with both hands and breathing heavily, Toshiro rarely showed kindness and treated this kid to a meal. It was also a way to comfort this idiot whose love affair had ended. Really? That's great. Hey, brother Toshiro. Are you celebrating for me passing the Chunin exam in advance? As he spoke, he did not forget to type with his hands, give me a seafood ramen, a super large one. Uchiha Obito, who had no idea that his love, who was already dead in his womb, was very happy at this moment. It was a rare opportunity for Toshiro to treat him, and he would not show mercy. Looking at Nohara Rin, who was looking at him with helplessness on her face, Toshiro stroked his forehead with his hand. Also having a headache, this kid should have been a ninja for quite some time by now, and he should have grown up a bit. Now he is about to become a chunin, but why does he still look like he just graduated from a ninja school? This kid deserves to be a bootlicker until his death. You better be careful, don't let others knock you out easily like last time, that would be too embarrassing. Absolutely not. I've been training hard for 2 years this time. I'm sure I can pass the chunin exam this time. By then I'll be a chunin like big brother Toshiro. How about that? Awesome. As he spoke, he looked at Toshiro proudly. He looked like he was about to praise me, like a husky waiting to be fed, wagging its tail crazily. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm now a working jonin of Konoha, and you'll never be able to catch up. Toshiro slowly ate the last noodle, drank a mouthful of the fragrant bone soup, and spoke lightly. What, really? Not only Obito, but even Nohara Rin next to him would be very surprised. A 14-year-old jonin is still very intimidating. What do you think? Toshiro glanced at Obito sideways, and didn't explain much, but from his attitude, the result can be known. Damn it, if I can also awaken the Sharingan, I can definitely become a jonin. He complained like this, and suddenly this guy seemed to have thought of something, looking at Dong Shilang with hope. What are you looking at? Brother Dong Shilang, I don't know. Do you have any tricks to open your eyes? Can you tell me? Don't worry, as long as you open your eyes, I'll treat you to a meal. As he said this, he patted his chest. Dong Shilang, who was watching from the side, twitched his eyes. Even if there was a trick, it couldn't be exchanged for a bowl of ramen. Chapter 213 Incident. Idiot, how could such a good thing happen to you? As he said this, Toshiro paid the bill directly. He left this idiot to Nohara Rin. Seeing this, Obito did not take it seriously, but looked at Nohara Rin beside him with an intoxicated face, not noticing the helplessness in her eyes. Obito, Rin, there is an urgent mission. At this moment, an untimely figure interrupted Obito's reverie and rescued the embarrassed Nohara Rin. Nani, he finally had a chance to be with Rin. He was just thinking about whether to confess directly or wait until he passed the chunin exam. He didn't expect that at this critical moment, he would be interrupted by Kakashi again. It was really abominable. Don't procrastinate. Ninjas should focus on the mission. Seeing that his companion was still hesitating after hearing the mission, Kakashi said something unpleasantly. What do you care? The first priority of a ninja is to complete the mission. You want to fight? Ha, what did you say? Seeing this scene, Nohara Rin, who had been following them, couldn't help but feel a headache. These two guys, whenever they are together, always quarrel over some insignificant things. You two, don't keep Minato teacher waiting for too long. As soon as the voice fell, she directly inserted herself between the two of them. She held their palms one by one, and led the way to the gathering point of their team. This time it is a high-level expulsion mission. A pair of elite rock ninjas broke through the defense line of the grass country and came to the vicinity of the village. The Hokage appointed us to annihilate them or expel them. Yes, X3 then. Let's go. After saying this, their teacher took the lead and went to the dense forest outside the village and began to search for the invading enemy. And his 3 disciples, at this time, also followed closely behind him. From Minato's solemn expression, Obito knew that this mission was extremely urgent and they could not afford to be negligent. Go to hell, kid. Just as Obito followed his teacher and vigilantly observed the movements around him. On a rock behind him, a figure separated from the rock and sneaked behind him, holding a kunai. It stabbed towards his neck. It's over. When the other party took action, Obito felt the evil wind behind his head, and his hands and feet were cold. He felt that he was really going to die this time. Obito, get out of the way, be careful. When he found something wrong, his companions, Nohara Rin and Kakashi, also found something wrong at this time. Their faces were full of anxiety, and they gave him a warning, but it was too late. Swish! A golden stream of light appeared in Obito's retina at this time, appearing when he was in the most danger. It blocked in front of him and punched the other party. Saved. Before he could breathe a sigh of relief, Minato Namikaze, who had just attacked the enemy to save him, changed his expression. "Be careful." As soon as he said that, an explosion sounded from behind Obito. Boom. Then he was taken away from the spot by his teacher. "Teacher, are you okay?" He still hadn't come back to his senses. The attentive Nohara Rin beside him asked about her teacher's condition with concern, looking terrified. "Everyone be careful. The other party is the Rock Ninjas blasting team. Be careful of the explosives on the other party." Minato Namikaze ignored his disciples who were concerned about him, and instead told them to be careful of the other party. He looked at the enemies who had just appeared with a serious face. "Teacher, Minato is injured?" Obito, who was a beat slower in reaction, finally realized that something was wrong with his teacher. The arm that the other party had just attacked the enemy was now hanging down weakly. It should be caused by the explosion just now. Before he could recover from the shock of his teacher Yellow Flash being injured, a group of 6 rock ninjas surrounded them. "Kakashi, you lead the 2 of them to break through. I'll hold them back." The other side had an absolute numerical advantage, and he was also injured. Minato didn't hesitate and directly let Kakashi lead them to break through, while he stayed to delay time. Yes, Kakashi didn't hesitate at all and turned around, ready to lead the 2 of them to break through. "I won't leave. We should stay to help the teacher." Seeing this, Obito didn't want to escape in such a disgrace. He still wanted to fight side by side with his teacher. Obito, X3. Now is not the time to be brave. Faced with his remarks, both Kakashi and Minato teacher changed their faces at this time, and even Rin, who had always been accommodating to him, disagreed with his recklessness. Faced with the opposition of his teacher and teammates, he had no choice but to break through with his companions. "You want to break through and ask for help? Dream on." The evil-looking Iwagakure on the opposite side would not watch them break through at this time. Before the 3 of them walked far, a group of 3 Iwagakure chased them. Their teacher, because of his injured right arm, only stopped one of them, and then fought with another team of rock ninjas. There was no way to take care of their side. Facing the pursuit and interception of the hidden ninjas, Kakashi took him and Lin and tried many ways, but they couldn't get rid of the 2 pursuers behind them. "I'll stop them." "Lin, you take Obito and run away, then go back for help." Leaving such a sentence to Obito, Kakashi, who had been running with the 2 of them, turned around and went to meet the pursuers behind him. "I know, Kakashi." Lin was quite decisive at this time. Without any nonsense, she directly took Obito's hand and continued to run towards the village. Obito was a little dazed after encountering such a sudden change. He didn't come back to his senses for a long time. He could only be held by Lin's hand and mechanically followed behind her. How did things suddenly become like this? He was just in Ukiraku Ramen, eating ramen with Big Brother Toshiro and Lin. Kakashi said he had a mission and he and the other party started arguing. Then Lin took them to meet the teacher. Then they were on an emergency mission. He was attacked by surprise, and the teacher was injured to save him. The enemy was numerous, and he and others fled in panic. He was just enjoying his leisure time in the village. How come it suddenly became like this? It changed too fast. Chapter 214. Weird. Before Obito could sort out the chaotic thoughts in his mind, a new change happened. "Hey, hey, hey, now let's see where you little brats can escape." A gloomy and harsh male voice came from behind Obito and Rin. Although he hadn't seen the other person's face, just hearing the voice made Obito, who was running away with Rin, shudder. The other person's voice was really unpleasant. "Why are you here? Where's Kakashi?" Seeing that there was no escape, Rin stopped and looked at the tall and thin rock ninja behind her, and tried to learn about the current situation of her companions from him. "Your companions? Of course they are dead." Seeing that his prey had stopped, the gloomy rock ninja did not rush to attack. He calmly blocked their escape route and chatted with them. "You are talking nonsense. Kakashi is a genius in the village. How could he be defeated so easily? Not to mention there is Minato teacher." Hearing this news, Obito could never accept it. How could Kakashi, who graduated at the age of 5 and became a Chunin at the age of 6, be defeated by the enemy so easily? And their teacher, that is the famous Yellow Flash, the fastest man in the ninja world. How could such people? "Genius? Are you the only geniuses in Konoha?" "You know, The one who held back the yellow flash is the youngest jonin in our Iwagakure demolition team, and the one who killed the white-haired guy just now is not a simple character either. He has a rare bloodline limit in our Iwagakure. While speaking, the Iwagakure showed his white teeth, his face full of ferociousness. This is absolutely impossible. Kakashi is still young after all, and he also saw that his teacher's arm was injured just now. Obito was speechless after being choked by the other party's words. For a moment, he was at a loss for words and didn't know how to respond to the other party. He could only continue to be stubborn. Obito, don't be fooled by the other party. The teacher and Kakashi must be fine. They are just entangled by the place. You go first. I will stop the other party. Remember to go back to the village for help. After saying this, Lin rushed towards the other party with a kunai in hand. Obito, who was standing aside, was stunned. He had never seen Lin like this. The other party was a medical ninja. Every mission was behind him and Kakashi. He didn't expect that there was such a side. Hurry up. Seeing that he was still stunned, Lin scolded him at this time, looking anxious, and then fought with the other party. But how could he, Uchiha Obito, abandon Lin and escape alone? He shouted and joined the battle. Rin, you go first. I will hold this guy. While fighting with the rock ninja, Obito did not forget to take the time to say to Nohara Lin. He had decided that even if he risked his own life, he would let Lin return to the village safely. This was the only thing he had to do no matter what. You two brats, what do you mean by being a ninja? Are you playing house? Seeing these two brats still pushing each other away at this time, the gloomy Iwagakure exploded. With a roar, he pulled out the ninja sword on his back and slashed at the two brats. Rin, be careful. Because of the position, the attack range of the sword covered Nohara Rin, and coupled with the opponent's tall and thin figure, Nohara Rin's head and body were about to be separated. Obito, who was watching from the side, was furious. Then he rushed forward without hesitation and used his body to help Nohara Rin block the knife light. What a pity. In the end, there was still no successful confession. At the last moment of his life, Uchiha Obito, this guy, had such a thought in his mind. It was unique. Puff! Exclamation mark. The same bright knife light, followed by the sound of the sharp blade entering the flesh. There was also the warmth splashing on his body and the smell of blood. Uchiha Obito, who was waiting to die with his eyes closed, did not feel any pain or discomfort at all, and even his neck did not feel any strange feeling. He opened his eyes, a little confused. Before he could think about it, his hand sank, as if something fell into his hands. Looking down, Obito was stunned. A scream of pain came out of Obito's mouth, which was really heartbreaking. At this time, Obito was holding a head in his hand. It was Nohara Rin. At this time, Nohara Rin had not completely died. Her mouth was still opening and closing, and she was mechanically saying, Obito. Run. 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 Rin. Uchiha Obito, who saw this scene, really felt that his whole world had suddenly lost its luster. It became pitch black, without any light. He had clearly promised himself that he would always watch over him. I haven't surpassed Kakashi yet. I haven't become Hokage yet. I haven't confessed to Lin yet. I haven't. How could it be? How could it be? All of this must be fake. Fake. Lin, don't. Is it really okay, Senor? Don't worry, there's nothing wrong. It's just an illusion. At most, let this guy rest for a few days. But tomorrow is the day for Obito's actual Chunin exam. At this time, inside a Kairaku ramen, Nohara Rin looked at Obito, who was lying on the table with a strange look on her face. She asked Tawashiro next to her. Just now, when Obito asked him how to open the Sharingan, he just glanced at Obito, and then a blood-red light flashed in his eyes. Obito lay on the table. Just when she was about to check on Obito's condition, Tawashiro stopped her, and didn't explain anything to her, just asked her to wait. Seeing this, she didn't insist on waking Obito up. As time went by, as a medical ninja, she also discovered that the illusion in Obito's eyes was quite complicated. If it was not handled properly, he would have to stay in bed for several days. This also made her expression even more strange. Senior, don't you want Obito to participate in the Chunin exam? Otherwise, how could it be, if the other party was not a senior of the same clan as Obito, and the Sharingan in his eyes just now was the same as what Obito usually boasted? She would have suspected that the other party was a spy who infiltrated Konoha and was responsible for assassinating Konoha's genius. Genius is a bit too much. Chapter 215. Obito opens his eyes. Konoha village. On the table of Ikiraku ramen, 3 people were standing and sitting at the table, surrounding a crouching figure. The so-called stall actually means a small stall, which is specifically used to refer to small shops like Ikiraku ramen. These 3 people were naturally Toshiro, Obito, and Rin. But at this time, Obito was unconscious, and Nohara Rin, who was beside him, looked at him worriedly. Toshiro, who caused all this, looked like he had nothing to do with it. They had obviously been in this state for quite a while. If there were no customers at this time, the hand-beating uncle would probably be unhappy. This was also because Toshiro's illusion level was not up to par, and he could not control the time in the illusion space at will like Tsukuyumi. Rin. A deafening shout broke the tranquility here, causing pedestrians on the street to look out, thinking that something bad had happened. It was not that these people had nothing to do, but that the shout was too terrifying. On the whole street, anyone who was not deaf heard this shrill cry. Here it comes. At this moment, Toshiro, who had been waiting for a long time, was shocked and even opened his Sharingan to closely observe the changes of Obito. At this time, Obito was like an elk in the forest, startled by the sudden appearance of a predator. He jumped 3 feet high and lifted up the entire table in front of him. The dishes and snacks on the table flew everywhere. The whole person looked ferocious, with his eyes wide open. Even the corner of his eye was cracked because of his excitement and excessive force, and a trace of blood slowly flowed down from the corner of his eye. The iris of the whole eye had turned red at this time, and there were 2 black magatama in it, which were the bloodline limit of the Uchiha family. The Sharingan. Obito's eyes were open. It's really a double magatama. Seeing this, Toshiro was not surprised. No one knows better than him what Obito experienced in the illusion he cast, and he expected to open his eyes. But he didn't know. At this time, the 2 black magatama in Obito's pupils were spinning rapidly. If Toshiro hadn't opened his Sharingan, he probably wouldn't have been able to see the changes in his eyes. Could this kid achieve it in one step? Toshiro, who understood what this meant, thought to himself, if Obito could awaken from ordinary eyes to the level of Meixiang in one step, it would be a precedent in history. You know, even the 6 Paths Sage and Indra didn't achieve this level, and the first time they opened their eyes was 3 magatama, so 3 magatama should be his limit. Meixiang? Absolutely impossible. Just when the magatama in Obito's eyes spun to the limit and the quick eye underwent some changes. Obito, who suddenly found himself in Ikiraku ramen, was stunned for a moment, and the whole person looked like he had crashed. Standing there, looking at Nohara Rin, who was looking at him with concern, he had no idea what had just happened. Just now, Rin was not trying to save him, but was being held by the Taiwan ninja, whose head was just in his hands. When he thought of this, he immediately regained some clarity and looked down at his hands. Nothing. Obito, are you okay? What happened in the illusion just now? Why are you so excited? You even knocked over the table. Seeing that his companion had finally come back to his senses, Nohara Rin breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, she was also a little curious about what Obito had experienced in the illusion of Senior Toshiro. Not only had he awakened his bloodline limit and opened his Sharingan, but his aura had also become so terrifying. Although she had no perception ability, she was so close to him and was very familiar with Obito. She did not miss any of his changes just now. Just now, Obito seemed to have become a different person, and she did not dare to confirm whether the Obito standing in front of her was still the person she knew. Illusion? Obito, who had not yet fully recovered, mechanically repeated the 2 words to Rin. He collapsed on the seat as if he was exhausted. It turned out to be an illusion. Having just experienced that fake world that was like a nightmare, Obito finally came to his senses after Nohara Rin's explanation. Rin, I'm so glad you're okay. After the shock, he found that all this was fake, and Obito's emotions suddenly burst out. He hugged Nohara Rin, who was caught off guard beside him, and buried his head in Rin's arms like an ostrich. If that were all, it would be fine. The key is this guy. At this time, tears and snot were flowing, and Toshiro, who was standing beside him, grinned. I was really scared just now. I thought. As he spoke, this guy became even more excited. It gave no horror Rin, who was hugged by him, a headache. It was so embarrassing. It's okay. Lin is a gentle person. If she had hit Obito like Tsunade or Sakura, this scene would be. Toshiro, who was watching the whole thing from the side, closed his Sharingan at this time. He held his chin with one hand, looking like he was just enjoying the fun. Alright, you're about to become a Chunin, and you've opened the Sharingan you've always dreamed of. Why are you crying like this? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? Lin patiently comforted Obito, looking at the crowd that had been attracted by the roar just now, and Toshiro, who was watching the fun with a fierce look on his face. Lin really wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. It was so embarrassing. Feeling the soft waist in his hands and the fragrance at the tip of his nose, Obito finally realized what he had done. His whole body froze. But those people watching the fun didn't care about him. Is this kid going to become a Chunin? Really? A crying and startled kid like this, how could he be a Chunin? It must be fake. That's right, the guy next to him is almost a Chunin, but I don't think this kid is far from it. Listening to the chaotic noises around him, Obito felt sick at this time. He didn't know where to put his hands and feet, and he didn't even care about opening the Sharingan. He was in a panic. Considering Obito's infatuation, it's not too much to give him a hug. Chapter 216 Afterwards. To be honest, Obito was a little embarrassed about the gossips of the ordinary villagers outside, but he didn't take it too seriously because he had been laughed at by his classmates since he was a child. He was used to it. But at this time, feeling that Lin was different from usual, Obito really didn't know what to do. Lin, she must be angry with him. Hey, Obito, how long are you going to hold her? After watching the show for a long time, seeing that Obito was frozen there, with no intention of letting go, Dong Xilang coughed and interrupted. He was a little suspicious whether this guy did it on purpose. He didn't let go for such a long time. I'm sorry. Lin, listen to my explanation. I really didn't mean it. Obito, who had just woken up from a dream, hurriedly let go of his salty pig hands, his whole face flushed red, and hurriedly apologized to Nohara Lin in front of him. The whole look was panic-stricken, and the expression was also extremely anxious, fearing that his goddess would be angry with him. Coupled with the tears and snot on Obito's face, it was still quite convincing as for the idle people outside. What does it have to do with him? Obito, I'm sorry to have embarrassed you, senior and uncle. Lin is still a lady. Even if she was offended by Obito, she didn't show it now. She was able to control her emotions very well and apologized to Toshiro and uncle. Of course, from her clenched fists and her uncontrollable steps, we can know that she is not calm now, and she also has the urge to flee the scene. Although she grew up with Obito and is very familiar with him, but the usual contact is just holding hands at most. Even if they hold hands with Kakashi and the three of them. Being hugged like this has never happened once, let alone in public. She now wishes she could disappear at the speed of light. She doesn't have to face the embarrassment of the scene. Since Obito is fine, I'll leave first. After saying hello to the few people present, Lin ignored Obito's retention and disappeared quickly from the scene. She wished she had the ability of her teacher, to be able to go directly from Meixiang to her home in an instant, and then find a pillow to rest quietly. Yes, she needed to be quiet. What are you looking at? Go after him. Well, remember to pay the bill before you leave. Seeing that the matter was understood, Dong Xilang stood up leisurely and said to Obito, who was a little entangled on the side. He didn't forget that the other party said he would treat him. Uchiha Dong Xilang, never owes money. Remember to help Uncle Akiraku clean up before you leave. After saying this, Dong Xilang served Akiraku ramen and walked towards his home. At the same time, all kinds of chaotic thoughts kept emerging in his mind. It is possible to open the eyes by relying on illusions. Obito is the best proof. Since he can succeed, can he do it too? But he is not like this idiot. and the effect of casting illusions on himself needs to be studied. We have to wait until the war is over. We can plan it well, since he did not open the Meixiang after receiving the news of his teacher's death last time. He knew that it would not be so easy to open his eyes. Fortunately, he did not open his eyes that time, but he could also clearly feel that his eyes had reached a critical point, just waiting for an opportunity. Speaking of which, since he started practicing meditation, his mind has been relatively stable. After opening his eyes, the strength of his Sharingan is somewhat different from that of his companions, especially after he cultivated into the sage mode and continuously let the sage chakra escape from his body. This gap became more and more obvious, and I don't know if Obito's opening of his eyes this time will have any bad effects. He knows that after this guy was promoted to Chunin, he went to carry out the Kamibi mission with Minato Namikaze. I just don't know if his ending will change with the Sharingan this time. If so, what about Madara? Bang, bang, bang. Brother Tawashiru, are you at home? That afternoon, at Uchiha Tawashiru's house, a figure wearing a blue jacket and orange goggles is knocking on the door. From the tightly closed gate, it can be known that this guy climbed over the wall to get in. Hey, kid, do you know that disturbing others' sleep is a matter of retribution? After the little episode of Akiraku Ramen, the exhausted Tawashiru went straight home to sleep. There is no fatigue that can't be solved by sleeping. If there is, it must be that your sleeping posture is wrong. Why? Rin forgives you? Otherwise why are you here? No, how could Rin be angry with me? She just. As he spoke, Obito's expression became depressed. He also knew that he had gone too far, although he didn't mean it. Rin still. Tell me, what's the matter with you coming to see me? He didn't have any curiosity about the emotional entanglement of this kid, so he went straight to the door. I have awakened the Sharingan. I wonder if Brother Tawashiru has any experience or something. Today's events were really a mixture of joy and sorrow. First, he opened the Sharingan, then he hugged Lin, and then Lin ignored him. He felt as if he was in the clouds. For this kind of thing, you can go directly to Grandpa Hidetoshi in the clan. He will teach you how to use the Sharingan. Uchiha Hidetoshi is an elder in the clan. With him around, Obito's problem is not a problem. After saying that, Tawashiru closed the door directly. He hadn't slept enough. Being woken up by this brat was just the right time to be unhappy. Bang, bang, bang. But just as he closed the door, a knock on the door sounded. What else? Tawashiru, who was extremely annoyed, could only helplessly open the door again. He knew that if he didn't open the door, this guy would keep bothering him. The elder of the Shuchi clan has gone to the front line. Seeing the impatience on Tawashiru's face, Obito did not take it too seriously, but said weakly, Tawashiru was stunned when he heard this. If I remember correctly, the elder of the Shuchi clan is over 60 years old, and it has been more than 10 years since he put down the kunai. At this time, he stepped onto the battlefield again. Come in. Being interrupted by the other party, it is probably impossible to fall asleep, so he is ready to send this guy away. Since the matter was caused by him, it is understandable to help this guy get familiar with the Sharingan at this time. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217 Trouble. On the morning of the third day, the newly promoted Jonin, Uchiha Tawashiru, was preparing to go out. After returning to Konoha for 2 days of rest, he had to say goodbye to the village and return to the cruel battlefield. Uchiha Tawashiru, the Hokage is looking for you. Just after locking the house and stepping out of the door, a figure wearing a mask and a large cloak suddenly appeared in front of Tawashiru. I know. After the message was delivered, the Anbu directly under the Hokage disappeared in front of Tawashiru without saying anything. TSK. I was just promoted to Jonin, and something came to me right away. Although he complained, Tawashiru walked towards the direction of the Hokage building. There was no other way. As long as he was still in Konoha, he could not ignore the Hokage. Hokage, What do you want to talk to me about? After arriving at the Hokage building and waiting for a while, Toshiro met the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen again. At this time, the Sandaime was only in his 50s, still in his prime, full of energy, unlike the kind grandfather with age spots on his face later. Being on the front line, I believe Toshiro must be more aware of the war between Konoha and the Land of Earth. What do you think? When he saw Toshiro coming over, the Sandaime did not directly ask Toshiro what he wanted to talk to him about. Instead, he asked Toshiro about his opinion on the front line. Opinion? What opinion does he have? He was a cannon fodder in Konoha's eyes. After being thrown onto the battlefield by these high-level officials, he was fighting and killing all day long. How could he have so much time to think about these things? The situation is not very good, especially after the Cloud Ninja joined the war. The situation on the front line has become more and more bad. Being stared at by the Sandaime, he had to come up with some ideas even if he didn't have any ideas, so he could only say some nonsense in line with the crowd. Although it was nonsense, it was indeed the case. At this time, Konoha could be said to be in danger, not to mention the Rock Ninja. When Inoki saw that the Sand Ninja could beat Kikyo Castle, he felt that the Rock Ninja was much stronger than the Sand Ninja, so he led the Rock Ninja to attack Konoha. But he didn't expect that with the further mobilization of Konoha and the efforts of various ninja families, Konoha, surrounded by enemies, blocked the fierce attack of the Rock Ninja. At this time, the joining of the Cloud Ninja can be said to be the last straw that broke the camel's back, not to mention the Water Country in the east, which was also ready to move at this time, and wanted to take the opportunity to tear a piece of meat from Konoha. All these made him feel powerless while working day and night. Yes, the situation on the front line is getting more and more difficult, and we have to use some special methods to try to end the war. As he said, he took out a scroll. This mission, just unfolding the scroll and taking a glance, Toshiro's expression became solemn. He never expected that the first mission given to him by the other party after becoming a Jonin would be the mission of Kanabi Bridge. In the world of ninja, although there are things like seal scrolls, they are not that useful in a war of tens of thousands of people. It is fine to use them on a small scale, but when the number of people reaches the scale of the Ninja World War, their role is not so important. Some food and weapons still need to rely on logistics. Fortunately, his mission is not to blow up the Kanabi Bridge directly, but to contain the Iwaga cure for this mission, in order to end the war as soon as possible. It is not just you. The entire front of the grass country, our Konoha ninjas will be dispatched to create conditions for the success of the mission. This time, Konoha went all out to attack the logistics nodes of the Iwaga cure, in order to cut off the supply line of the Iwaga cure in one fell swoop, forcing Inoki to bow his head and admit that the Iwaga cure had failed. Yes, I will definitely complete this mission and contribute my strength to peace, in order to better play a role in containment. I hope you and your team can go deep into the territory of the Land of Earth, destroy their logistics, assassinate their key personnel, and anything that can attract a large number of rock ninjas will do. Seeing that Toshiro responded, the Sandaime did not express too much, but stated his requirements for Toshiro and the team he led. I knew it would not be that simple. If it was just to contain some rock ninjas, this kind of mission would not be too difficult for them, because the requirements of this mission are too broad. But he did not expect that the Sandaime Hokage would let him lead the team to go deep into the Land of Earth to cause destruction. In this case, the difficulty of the mission will increase a lot. If it goes wrong, all of them will be defeated in the Land of Earth. But this mission is obviously not something he can refuse. If this is the case, I hope to get some support from the village. Since it is impossible to refuse, Toshiro did not hesitate too much, but put forward his own requirements, hoping to get some help from the village. Otherwise, he really had no confidence that he could successfully escape from the Land of Earth with his friends. And he also believed that as long as the request he put forward was reasonable, the other party would not refuse. What do you want? Tell me. The third Hokage just raised his eyebrows and asked his question. If it was a request that was beneficial to this mission, he would not refuse. The premise was that the other party's request was reasonable. For Konoha at this time, Nothing was more important than this mission. I hope, seeing that the third Hokage was willing to give in, Toshiro did not hesitate at all and directly stated his request. He believed that the other party would agree to his request. Is that so? Okay. Hearing Toshiro's request, the third Hokage just frowned and agreed. The other party's request was very reasonable and would also help this mission. Although it cost a little more, it was worth it. But Toshiro, I hope you can understand the importance of this mission. I believe you know something about the current situation of the village. As if he was afraid that Toshiro would take the things but not contribute, the third Hokage reminded Toshiro before he left and reiterated the importance of this mission. From the records of the other party's previous missions, it can be seen that the other party is sometimes very flexible. There are always some flaws in the completion of the mission. If it weren't for the fact that the other party is a member of the Uchiha, they really couldn't make it too obvious, and they would not let it go so easily. Danzo was very dissatisfied. Please rest assured, ending the war is also the wish of the Uchiha. Chapter 218 Confession. Coming out of the Hokage's office, without stopping for long, Toshiro took what he wanted and set off to the front line camp. At the same time, he had to sigh. His identity was really unlucky. He couldn't get good things, but these dangerous missions came one after another. Although the third generation was still polite to him because of the corrupt situation, after the Nine Tails rebellion broke out, his and Uchiha's situation would be even more difficult. Riding on the chakra creation he made with the super beast fake painting, he rushed back to the camp at lightning speed, and he saw an unexpected figure. Who is this? Has the family been embarrassed to this extent? In Uchiha Fugaku's tent, a small figure was sitting upright, from his medium-length hair and the same nasolabial folds. Needless to say, you already know who this is. Facing Toshiro's question, Uchiha Fugaku, who was sitting at the top, was speechless and could only answer Toshiro's question with silence. Protecting peace is our Uchiha responsibility. After a long time, Fugaku finally spoke, and as soon as he spoke, he choked Toshiro and was speechless. As a father, what else could he say at this time? He was also sad to send his 4-year-old child to the battlefield, but in the family, all the clan members who successfully refined chakra were basically in this camp. Among them, there were many children who were still studying ninja. If he, the new clan leader, did not set an example, it would be a bit unreasonable. In desperation, he could only ignore Mikoto's objection and bring Ichi to the camp. For this, the mild-tempered Mikoto had a big quarrel with him. Let's not talk about this. Toshiro's mission this time is of great importance, so we must be careful. If they could really force the rock ninja to negotiate, the family could also breathe a sigh of relief. What could he say? He could only nod his head in response. As a father, he was willing to give up his son. What could he, an outsider, say? In his opinion, Ichi would do what he did later, and Uchiha Fugaku, as a father, should take half the responsibility. If he hadn't brought his young son to the battlefield of ninjas, Uchiha Ichi, who was only 4 years old, would have been stimulated by the cruel ninja world war, and the tragedy that followed would never have happened. No matter how much the Hokage and Danzo played the good cop and the bad cop, Ichi would not have made that decision. Of course, the reason for the Meixiang Sharingan is also indispensable. In his opinion, in the Uchiha family, no one who opened the Meixiang Sharingan had a normal mental state, especially when they just opened their eyes. There would be some mysterious operations. Madara was determined to do something with the moon eye, and Obito didn't revive his own white moonlight and went all the way to the end. Fugaku faced his son's choice and waited for death with his bare hands. And Shizui actually told his trump card to the Konoha high-level officials who were obviously on guard against him. As a member of the Uchiha family, his family was going to rebel. Can the Konoha high-level officials trust you 100%? If they don't hold back, that would be hell. Ichi and Sasuke were no better. After one of them opened his eyes, he wiped out his entire clan, leaving only his beloved Odedu. After Sasuke opened his eyes, he followed Obito, who conspired with his elder brother to exterminate the clan, and then was fooled by the Shodaime and changed his ways. None of them is normal. As a result, Toshiro was not so enthusiastic about opening his Meixiang. He was afraid that if he was not careful, he would become a psychopath like them, and that would be the end. Even if he was a time traveler, he was not sure about this kind of thing. After leaving Fugaku's tent and looking at the short figures coming and going in the camp, Toshiro had the idea of completing the task well for the first time, if for no other reason. There were really many 6 and 7-year-old kids in the camp. The current Uchiha camp has only about 200 people, and half of these 200 people are children under 12 years old. Facing such a large-scale war, their family was really powerless. A batch of older clansmen sacrificed themselves, and they could only bring these children to the battlefield. "Are you all ready?" "Yes, we are all waiting." As soon as he came out of the tent, Dong Shilang began to ask among his friends. This guy was the oldest. Many things in the team were handled by him. As he spoke, Dong Shilang kept walking and took to the exit of the camp, where his teammates were waiting for him. At the entrance of the camp, it seemed that they knew that their mission was important. A large group of clansmen gathered here, and they all watched them leave the camp and go far away. At this time, Uchiha Obito, who had just successfully obtained the title of Chunin, was holding a bunch of bright red roses in his hand, waiting anxiously. His mood at this time was like the cherry blossoms blooming on the tree beside him, blazing and full. It was also like the petals of petals drifting in the wind, dancing and erratic. Yesterday, when he successfully passed the Chunin exam, Lin asked him to meet here, saying that she had something important to tell him. Important things? What else could be better than what he was going to do now? Today I must confess to Lin. Taking advantage of the fact that he successfully passed the Chunin exam, he also successfully opened the blood limit Sharingan with the help of his elder brother Dong Shilang. This time, he mustered up all the courage to make the current decision. He clenched his fist again and cheered himself up. Seeing the beautiful figure in the distance, he quickly hid the flowers in his hand behind his back. Is Lin also happy that I successfully became a Chunin? Looking at the haunted figure in the distance, seeing the other party's cheerful steps and the obviously relaxed brows, Obito was more confident in his confession this time. It seems that Lin is no longer angry with me. Seeing this scene, Obito breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. He was still afraid that Lin was still angry with him because of his recklessness a few days ago. Now it seems that she is not. Facing Lin's approach, Obito's forehead was sweating with nervousness. At the same time, he could hear the popping sound in his chest that was getting faster and faster. "Sorry, I'm late." Lin walked happily and smiled. She put her hands together and showed Obito a gentle smile, while she didn't forget to say, Chapter 219 Failure. It's okay, it's okay. Facing Lin's gentle smile, Obito had no resistance and waved his hands repeatedly. It means that it's okay. He was so nervous at this time that even the palms of his hands that he stretched out to shake were full of sweat. "Everyone, come out." At this time, Nohara Lin didn't pay too much attention to the abnormality of his companions, and even ignored his hands behind his back. Instead, he said to the surroundings, "Everyone." Hearing this word, Obito was completely confused. Originally, he thought that this should be a time for him and Lin to spend alone together. How could there be a everyone? Everyone. Didn't Kakashi become a Jonin? I think as peers, we can give some gifts and celebrate together. Lin ignored Obito's expression and took out a plan and distributed it to these peer ninjas who suddenly appeared under the cherry tree. Is that so? Looking at the girl in front of him who was happily distributing the plan and preparing to give Kakashi a surprise, Obito finally realized his self-conceit at this time. The rose in his hand also flew out of his hand uncontrollably, except for those classmates who had come a long time ago but had not appeared. Nohara Rin, who was busy, did not notice the scene at all. Those classmates, who originally thought they would see a good confession show, did not expect that things would take such a turn. They were all surprised, but at most they just sighed that Obito, the idiot, had made a fool of himself again. On the evening of the third day, in a valley, Toshiro and his group were observing the stronghold in the distance with a telescope. Looking at the densely packed Iwagakure, even Toshiro, who had been through many battles, could not help but feel a little bit of a pain in the ass. Yesterday and the night before, they used the cover of night to scout along the Iwagakure supply line. Because of the existence of the perception barrier, they could not get too close, and the cover of night made it even more blurry. In order to determine the accuracy of the intelligence, he dropped his companions far away from the Iwagakure stronghold and asked them to observe the situation of those strongholds. It doesn't need to be very accurate, just use telescope to observe from a distance and confirm the general situation of these bases. Shizui, they are in your hands, you will lead them during our mission. Dong Shilang was explaining something to Shizui at this time. He didn't plan to take these little ghosts and his team with him on this mission, just let them participate in the reconnaissance. And there was no need for more. It was really too dangerous to go deep into the land of Earth with so many burdens. He only planned to take Hamura and the others with him, and as for these little ghosts, they couldn't be left idle. In order to be on the safe side, Dong Shilang arranged for Shizui to take those of his clan to find some remote places in the land of grass as their refuge. If anything unexpected happened, this would be their hiding place when they retreated. Even this kind of mission would not be easy. It was not easy to find some bases for retreat in the land of grass. If the rock ninja discovered their tracks halfway, it would not be easy for them, but he believed that Shizui could do it well. After all, the other party was the future instant body Shizui. Senior, is it really okay with just the strength of you guys? I think we should all work together, so that the strength can be more concentrated. But Shizui obviously didn't appreciate his kindness. Shizui was still very unwilling to be excluded from the mission, although he was usually humble and polite. How could he, who was able to open the Sharingan at the age of 8, be willing to be looked down upon like this? He was called a genius by his family since he was a child, and he thought that ordinary Chunin was not his opponent. Now, he didn't even have the qualifications to go on the mission together. How could he accept it? Shizui, this mission is not suitable for taking you with you, and the more people the better. According to his plan, this mission did not require too many people, and you are not completely without things to do here. In addition to finding a shelter, you have to set up some necessary traps to cover our retreat. The retreat of us is left to you. This was not a lie, because Tawashiro was not sure that he could return safely with Hamura and the others. Yes, Shizui, maybe we will need your protection someday. Next to him, the fully armed Uchiha Sake touched Shizui's messy natural curls and smiled at him. She liked this young fellow very much. When she looked at him, she would inevitably think of her young brother. Therefore, she took good care of Shizui. Let's go. After calming Shizui down, Dong Shilang looked at his companions and let 3 blackbirds carry the 5 of them to the distant Iwagakure base. This time, our main task is to attract the attention of the Iwagakure. Everyone, be careful when you are on the mission. Are the detonating tags for bombing ready? Yes, I checked them all and there is no problem. That's good. Dong Shilang reminded him. Iwagakure has ninjas who can fly. Although our aerial bombing is difficult to defend against, the anxious Iwagakure may have some way to take us down. At that time, he was not going to use the conventional method to carry out this mission. Instead, he used aerial bombing to attract the attention of the rock ninja. But this would inevitably lead to hatred. It is estimated that by then, there will be quite a lot of rock ninjas surrounding the 5 of them. And there are a lot of strange ninjutsu in the ninja world, and it is inevitable that some accidents will occur in the middle. In fact, in his opinion, even the Kanabi Bridge does not have a good defense against aerial bombing. As long as you are willing to use detonating tags, it is not a matter of minutes. But when he proposed this plan in the Hokage's office, for some reason, the Sandame did not agree with his plan. Instead, he praised his method of using air superiority to attract rock ninjas. For this reason, he also asked the logistics department to distribute a large number of detonating tags to them. At the same time, he was also informed of some specific conditions of the logistics of the hidden ninjas in the land of Earth. After thinking hard for a long time, Tawashiro finally came to his senses. He is a member of the Uchiha clan. How could the Sandame let him become the end of this war? Things like battlefield MVP are not born with him. Some card text, poor writing, forgive me. Chapter 220 Gaze. Madara, the kid you asked us to pay attention to has left the village to carry out a mission. A noisy voice suddenly sounded in the dark cave. The silence was broken by this voice. Light appeared, and a half-burned candle was lit. bringing a hint of dim light to the dark space. Along with the candlelight, a bright red eye light also lit up. "Oh, did the kid leave the village? Go and bring him here." White Zetsu. After saying this, the old man closed his eyes without any fluctuations, like a piece of rotten wood, without any vitality. "Madara, have you really decided to choose that kid?" After a long time, a hoarse male voice sounded. "This kid doesn't look very smart, and may not be able to complete the plan." Black Zetsu obviously had his own ideas about the person chosen by the other party to carry out the plan. He didn't think that kid was a good candidate. Compared with him, another focus object is more suitable to be Madara's successor. "The talent shown by the other party is extraordinary, Black Zetsu. Although you are the incarnation of my will, you still don't understand the characteristics of Uchiha. That kid will be a very good candidate." The candidate that Black Zetsu chose is indeed more suitable than this kid. But according to the information collected by White Zetsu, it is almost impossible to control the other party. Although the other party is a clone of his will, he obviously does not understand things like controlling people's hearts. But the talent of this kid is really. Although Black Zetsu admitted that what Madara said made sense, according to the information they collected, this kid called Obito was really a bit unbearable to look at. He didn't think that the other party could complete the plan well after Madara was temporarily offline. If there was any accident in the middle, his plan would be in trouble again. "No buts. If this kid can't meet our requirements, we can just change the target. Just like the previous candidates, if they can't burst out satisfactory potential, just discard them." Just like what Madara said, although they don't have many candidates, they are not just these two. It's nothing more than changing one and trying again. How is Nagato? That Uzumaki clan member has adapted well to the eyes and is working hard for peace with his two companions. It has to be said that Nagato's talent is amazing. Even a Uzumaki clan member can grow normally under the pressure of a pair of samsara eyes. This is amazing. Even Obito after adulthood can't reach this level. He can only withstand one samsara eye and is suffocated by the pupil power in the eyes. And Nagato has been under the pressure of the samsara eye since he was a child. Although he looks a little thin, he can withstand the samsara eye very well. That's good. Remember to keep an eye on him. Leaving this sentence, Madara continued to fall into a deep sleep. He is too old now. He must find the next Madara as soon as possible. Otherwise he will not be able to hold on for long. As for peace, this kind of thing only exists in dreams. Dragonfire, you will cover us later. Flying in the air, Dong Qilang began to arrange his companions. This time, they also chose the ninjutsu of Super Beast pseudo painting to create chakra creations. On the one hand, it is because the Zaoshan Eagle had no wisdom before. Although he has taught him a lot in these years, his progress is limited. Apart from flying, he has nothing else to show. He can only summon him in an emergency. Another reason is that the other party is a summoned beast, and the summoning time is really limited. There is no way to follow them throughout the mission. As they get closer and closer to the camp of the Rock Ninja, the other party also has some reactions at this time. From time to time, crossbows will be shot from below. However, they were all dodged by Tawashiro, who was controlling these birds. For him who had opened the Sharingan, he could dodge these long-range weapons fired from hundreds of meters away. Let's get started. As they came to the top of the camp, his companions began to move at this time. He was in charge of controlling these birds and was alert to the attacks of the Rock Ninja below. Long Huo remained alert to prevent any accidents from happening in the middle of the journey so as to cover them. Yan and Kaoxia each took out a sealing scroll at this time. Just by looking at the size and appearance of the scroll, it was clear that it was a high-end product. Release. As the three of them made hand seals, one kunai after another appeared in the air, and then fell towards the Rock Ninja camp below due to gravity. These ordinary kunai, on the ring at the end, were tied with varying numbers of detonating tags, either 2 or 3, or 5 or 6. These falling detonating tags had been ignited. There was a curl of green smoke, falling towards the camp. Attack. Don't stop, you idiots. Can't you aim before firing the crossbows? Below, a Rock Ninja Jonin was scolding his subordinates. His voice was loud and full of energy. When he received the report from the Perception Ninja, he began to arrange his subordinates to fire the crossbows. However, Due to the cover of darkness, his subordinates obviously could not aim at the target, unlike Toshiro and his companions in the air. In the eyes of these attackers, although it was dark now, with the help of the light of the rock ninja camp and the bonus of the Sharingan, they could still see the movements in the camp clearly, and Toshiro could use his eyesight far superior to his fellow tribesmen to distinguish the firing trajectories of these rare anti-aircraft weapons and dodge in advance. As for the rock ninjas on the ground, they could only use the sparse starlight to distinguish Toshiro and his companions with difficulty. What is this? Before they could fire 2 rounds of crossbows, something seemed to be falling from the sky. Be careful, it's a detonating tag. As these deadly weapons slowly approached the ground, the rock ninjas finally discovered what was approaching them. They all panicked and looked for cover. Boom, boom, boom. As these kunai with detonating tags fell, waves of explosions, flames, and screams began to spread in the rock ninja camp. The first to suffer were the few crossbows that could be used for air defense. During an air raid, the first thing to do is to eliminate the opponent's anti-aircraft firepower. He still knew this simple truth. Naturally, he would pay special attention to these weapons that could threaten him. Chapter 221 Lois, turn off the lights. It seemed that he realized that if he continued like this, he and his men would be beaten passively. However, the helpless rock ninja Jonin could only roar with helplessness, and then hide. Dong Shilang and his men did not fly very high at this time, only about 300 to 400 meters. The chaotic air currents in the sky, the dim light, and the height they were at were all important factors that affected their bombing accuracy, and the number of their detonating suits was limited. But even this distance of 300 to 400 meters had made 99% of the ninjas unable to do anything to them. Fortunately, the rock ninja camp was built very solidly, and some valuable items were properly preserved by them. But this did not bother Dong Shilang. After seeing that there was nothing in the camp that could threaten him, Dong Shilang began to unscrupulously perform the ninjutsu of super beast fake painting. He created small flying birds 1 or 2 feet long, and let them hold dozens of detonating tags and swooped down on the obviously taller and stronger buildings in the camp. However, in this case, the consumption of detonating tags is obviously a bit large. Flame, don't be so excited. We still have several camps to visit tonight. After reminding his companions, Dong Shilang saw that the camp below was almost destroyed, and he had no intention of staying any longer. He drove a few birds and headed towards the direction of the land of Earth. It was not until 10 minutes after they left that the explosions in the camp had stopped, and the rock ninja occasionally poked their heads out to check the situation. Go and inform the main camp of the situation. Seeing that there were no subsequent sneak attacks, the rock ninja's Jonin was sure that the enemy had left, and at this time he quickly found his assistant. He asked him to report the losses here to the main camp. Have you figured out the enemy's intelligence? In a rock ninja camp, the lights were bright at this time, and it was a busy scene. This is the 5th supply point that has sent us an attack notice. A tall and strong rock ninja with a square face asked his subordinates. Lord Huang Tu, the enemy attacked the supply point from the air, using a large number of detonating tags. We have no ability to intercept their attack and can only passively defend. But from the intelligence that the enemy attacked the supply point for almost an hour, the enemy this time is targeting our logistics. We think that the enemy will. Nonsense. Before the other party finished speaking, the son of the 3rd generation Tsuchikage interrupted his speech. The enemy's intention is so obvious. Do you still need them to remind you? What I asked is whether I have figured out the specific intelligence of the enemy so that I can discuss specific countermeasures. This group of combat staff, each of them is a group of drunken hindsight, only saying some things that they already know. What's the use of this? I'm very sorry. We can only notify the rear supply point in advance and let them prepare for defense. Faced with the anger of his superior, the rock ninja who was pushed out to take the blame was also helpless. Although they also have a blasting unit, they have no experience in dealing with such air raids. Bang! Throwing the report in his hand to the ground, Huang Tu suddenly stood up and walked towards the gate. Lord Huang Tu, where are you going? We still need you to take charge of the camp. Seeing his superior acting like this, Even though he had been prepared before, the rock ninja's face changed drastically, and he winked at his companions frantically. But at this time, who would be so tactless to jump out and step on the landmine? They were all in dresses. Of course, the elders will take care of the camp. I'm just doing nothing here. It's better to destroy this attack team with amazing destructive power. In this camp, he was just a spokesperson for his father and just a mascot. Instead of doing this, he might as well do something useful. Beiling, Gang Jiu, follow me, Huang Tu shouted as soon as he left the tent. And then two rock ninjas appeared behind him and followed Huang Tu. These two people were the guards specially arranged by the third Tsuchikage for his son. They were not only powerful, but also loyal. Earth style, light and heavy rock technique. Seeing the two people appear, Huang Tu directly performed the famous flying ninjutsu of the rock ninja village and slowly rose into the air. At this time, one of his guards also performed the same technique, and at the same time, he did not forget his companions and took him into the air. Light and heavy rock technique. This famous flying ninjutsu of the rock ninja is more or less known to all major ninja villages, because this ninjutsu is so useful in some logistics and other aspects. But like the rock ninja, using this ninjutsu to fly into the sky directly, the trick is the secret of the rock ninja. Except for the people trusted by the Tsuchikage, no one can be taught. Not to mention flying with others. It seems that these rock ninjas have increased their vigilance. With the help of the starlight in the sky, looking at the rock ninja supply point below that was on high alert, Toshiro did not have any surprises. After so much time, it is reasonable for the rock ninja to react. Turning around, he asked, "How many detonating tags are left?" "More than half of them have been used up, and there are less than 10,000 left." Each of them roughly distinguished the number in their scrolls, and then Dong Shileng got this number. "It's a bit small." Next, "There are several supply points to bomb. This can't go on." Not to mention that it's like Conan in the original work, squandering 600 billion detonating tags at one time, but the number given by the Hokage this time is really a bit small. If he had 600 billion detonating tags, the rock ninja camp would be a piece of cake. You have to know that the money spent on the detonating tags consumed by the little rich woman in the ninja world that time, just the paper used, is a very huge number. You have to know that 1 ton of paper can be divided into nearly 230,000 A4 sheets, and 600 billion detonating tags. How many tons of paper are there? This is not to mention some ink or materials such as conducting chakra that need to be spent. Even if the other party can use paper escape, this is too exaggerated. And the third generation, there are only 20,000 sheets in total. It's totally unworthy of the title of the largest village in the ninja world. Secretly complaining about the stinginess of the Sandame Hokage, Toshiro twisted in the air. His body was a little tired because of performing the Super Beast fake painting for several hours in a row. He waved his hand, signaling to launch an attack. Chapter 222. Early morning. The next morning, as the sky got brighter, visibility began to improve slowly. Looking at the rock ninja supply point in front of him, he decided that this was the final target of this mission. After completing the bombing, he would retreat with his companions. Everyone be careful. Since the other party has taken precautions, they might prepare some means to deal with us. Flying in the air, Dong Shileng spoke to remind his companions that the more they had to be careful at this time. At this time, in the camp, next to a perception barrier, a large group of rock ninjas were holding their breath and quietly waiting for the news of the perception ninja. Southeast direction, 2 kilometers away, direction 127, altitude 351. The perception ninja who was sitting quietly in the barrier suddenly exclaimed. With his exclamation, the rock ninjas in the whole room turned their eyes to him, causing the perception ninja to swallow his saliva involuntarily. The target is approaching quickly. It is estimated that in less than 20 seconds, the other party will be close to the top of the camp. Although he was extremely nervous, he still completed his task well and pointed out the position of the attacker. Very good. Is everyone almost ready? Huang Tu was very satisfied with the news. It was worth spending a lot of chakra to rush to this camp. Waiting here, I've rested well. Huang Tu and his group, who had traveled half the night, finally arrived at the camp to rest. They had already rested, And in this room, there were not only Huang Tu and his 2 guards. In order to prevent Huang Tu from getting into trouble, and also to take down the attackers in one fell swoop, in the rock ninja camp, all the jonin that could be found nearby were mobilized. There were nearly 20 people in total. Don't think that a 20-man jonin team is small. The entire rock ninja has only about 200 jonin. Even in Konoha, the number of jonin is more than that of rock ninja, but it has not reached 400. These people are the precious fighting force of the ninja village plus their subordinates. It is relatively easy for the ninja group to reach the level of chunin. An ordinary civilian can basically reach it after good training and a few C-level ninjutsu. But the level of a jonin is not that simple. It is not something that ordinary people can expect. Seeing that his companions were ready, Huang Tu did not hesitate and directly ordered these rock ninjas to act according to the plan. He began to make seals with both hands and prepared to perform ninjutsu. Although Dong Shileng and his group, who were heading towards the rising sun, were cautious at this time, they did not find anything unusual in the face of Huang Tu, who was equally cautious. Just as they approached the rock ninja camp, a huge rock arm emerged from the ground at this time. This suddenly appeared rock arm was nearly 30 meters long. If it was just like this, there would be nothing to be afraid of. But in the palm of the arm, there were 6 ninjas wearing rock ninja uniforms standing at this time. At this time, they were looking at them with bright eyes. At the same time, 3 of them also made seals at the same time, and shouted softly, "Earth escape middle dot light and heavy rock technique." Then the rock arm suddenly exerted force and made a throwing posture. The whole movement was not heavy or slow. Instead, it gives people a sense of ease. Go. With Huang Tu's control, a group of 6 people, 2 by 2, like cannonballs, went towards Dong Shileng and his group 300 or 400 meters away. In order to cooperate with Huang Tu's attack and prevent accidental injuries. In the camp, the crossbows stopped firing. Here they come. As early as when the rock arm appeared, Dong Shileng noticed the movement below, but it was too late for him to retreat at this time. The opponent can be said to have launched a surprise attack on them at the right time, using the huge rock arm on the ground, and at the same time, he and his companions performed the light and heavy rock technique. Let himself and his companions become as light as nothing, and then let the same light rock giant hand send himself and others into the sky. The reason why there are 6 people is to increase the advantage in numbers, so that they can get them to the ground in one fell swoop. Fortunately, Huang Tu found another rock ninja who knew the light and heavy rock technique from the gathered ninjas from the same village, so that they can gather 6 people one by one. Fire style, Phoenix flower bomb fire style, Great Dragon fire technique fire style, Dragon flame song technique. Facing the sudden arrival of the rock ninja, Toshiro and his men did not slow down at all and responded. They all performed long-range offensive fire-style ninjutsu. They hoped to snipe these aggressive rock ninjas and create some opportunities for themselves to retreat. Although they were carrying out bombing missions all night, they did not consume much. Every time they arrived above the rock ninja supply point, they only needed to summon the detonating talisman from the ceiling scroll. Moreover, each bombing lasted for a relatively short time, less than 10 minutes. As for the reason, it was not because Toshiro and his men were kind and worried that the rock ninjas could not afford it, but because the number of detonating talismans was not enough. If they did not use them sparingly, they would not be able to take care of most of the rock ninja supply points. However, Toshiro was an exception. He controlled these birds and carried his companions all night, and he was more or less tired. Don't even think about it. Those who were chosen and carried on the backs of those rock ninjas who knew the light and heavy rock techniques were all carefully selected elites. How could they let the other party get what they wanted so easily? Earth escape middle dot rock technique. A rock ninja performed a defensive earth escape ninjutsu at this time, and it was not an ordinary rock technique. The entire ninjutsu was performed, wrapping him and his teammates up. From a distance, it looked like a huge stone ball with a diameter of 3 or 4 meters. It was obvious that he was prepared to resist. He wanted to rely on the thick rocks to block these fire escape ninjutsu. If it weren't for his companions who helped to perform ninjutsu to reduce the weight, he would have fallen to the ground with his companions at this time. Some chose to resist, and of course some chose other methods. Relying on their own light and heavy rock techniques, they took their companions to play with positioning in the air to avoid these attacking ninjutsu. Although the light and heavy rock techniques of their rock ninjas could not catch up with some birds with chakra and speed, they could still do some dodges. Chapter 223 Clay Bomb. Earth Style. Flying Gravel. Earth Style. Multiple rock cannons still in the air. The rock ninjas who had just withstood a round of attacks from Toshiro and his team were not idle at this time, and each of them launched their own attacks. At this time, they were still 30 or 40 meters away from Toshiro and his team, and they used long-range attack ninjutsu with the characteristics of rock ninjas, and they were aiming at the birds under Toshiro and his team. Unlike the rock ninjas who successfully flew in the sky with their own ninjutsu, if Toshiro and his team lost these birds at this time, they would have to think of other ways. Fire Style. Great Fireball Jutsu. Facing the long-range attacks of the rock ninjas, Toshiro and his team unanimously used this ninjutsu, which had no record in the original work. After these stones that were coming towards Toshiro and his team were swallowed by these orange red fireballs with a diameter of 7 or 8 meters, each of them basically lost most of their impact force. Before they flew a few meters, several kunai were inserted into the rocks. With the hissing sound of the detonating talismans on the kunai, the rocks that were heading towards Toshiro and his companions were blown into pieces with continuous explosions. The flying rocks not only caused trouble for Toshiro and his companions, making them panic, but also the rock ninjas on the opposite side were dodging them. These rocks would not harm them because they were converted from their chakra, just as Toshiro and the rock ninjas were intercepting these flying rocks together. The two people who had previously wrapped themselves and their companions with a huge stone ball approached Toshiro and his companions. With the help of the thick stone wall, they not only withstood Toshiro and his companions' previous fire escape ninjutsu, but also ignored the flying rocks. Moreover, as they approached Toshiro and his companions, a large number of white creatures emerged from the surface of the huge stone ball. Fuck, these aren't explosive clays. As soon as he saw these white things, Toshiro's heart was filled with alarm bells. How could he not pay attention to the explosive clay used by Deidara? However, as far as he knew, there was no ninja like Deidara in the entire Iwagakure village's blasting team. Although there were things like explosive clay, these Iwagakure blasting ninjas were not as good as Deidara. They couldn't even make a flying C2 flying dragon, which was why he dared to carry out aerial bombing. Asagi used Chidori Senbon. Even though these blasting ninjas were not as good as Deidara, Toshiro didn't dare to underestimate them at all. He loudly reminded his companions to guard against these explosive objects. Swish, swish, swish. Before these little things jumped up from the huge stone ball, a row of thin and long senbons glowing with blue light nailed them to the stone ball. Although this Iwagakure blasting ninja couldn't reach the level of Deidara, however, it is not a problem to make some clay objects that can shuttle through the soil and rocks and glide for a distance. Asagi, watch out for their detonating clay. Fortunately, he plagiarized the Chidori ninjutsu, and also copied a series of changes developed by the second pillar. While celebrating his plagiarism, Dongshilang controlled the birds under the people and controlled them to fly far away. Trying to get rid of the entanglement of these rock ninjas, he and his people were really not at an advantage in fighting against the rock ninjas in the air. The birds painted under him were somewhat similar to the shadow clone technique. Once they were hurt, they would turn into a ball of ink. When they were fighting, they had to carefully protect their mounts. It was really difficult to take care of both ends. Just when Dongshilang was about to retreat with his companions, he seemed to feel something, and suddenly turned back and looked at the huge stone ball that was less than 20 meters away from him and his people. Although he felt something, his Sharingan did not have the perspective of the Byakugan, and he did not notice the changes on the back of the stone ball. The two Iwagakure ninjas who had just trapped themselves in the stone ball appeared outside the stone ball. With a gentle push, they pushed the stone ball towards the direction where Toshiro and the others were. Then, the two of them flew towards the direction where their companions were with the reaction force. I was careless. Looking at the stone ball coming towards him and the others, Toshiro realized something, but it was too late. He could only turn around and say to his companions, "Be careful." Then he burst out with all his strength, creating a huge senbon less than 1 meter long, and stabbed at the huge stone ball. However, all this was in vain. A loud shout came from a distance. Boom! With this shout, the entire stone ball began to explode violently. Along with the explosion, countless pieces of stone flew after the stone ball broke. Because of the violent explosion, they began to fly all over the sky. Facing such a large number of flying stones, Dong Shileng and his companions were helpless at this time. The opponent's method was too simple and crude. They used the rock ninjas in the distance to attract their attention and lure them to perform ninjutsu. While leaving them no time to take care of other things, they covered the rock ninjas who seemed to be ready to resist their attacks. When they got close to a certain range, they directly detonated the huge stone ball, causing the flying stones to destroy the birds under them. Damn, I didn't expect that these rock ninjas who looked stupid had such a delicate side. In midair, Dong Shileng could only protect himself with all his strength without successfully preventing the opponent's ninjutsu from being launched. As for the birds under him, he could no longer care about them. The flying birds drawn by the Super Beast fake painting wanted to carry them to fly, and the wingspan was about 7 or 8 meters. Facing the flying stones, he was really helpless. Not only him, but also his companions who were also in pairs were in a difficult situation at this time. It was too late to use ninjutsu to block the flying stones. They could only shoot their kunai, shuriken and other throwing weapons. They hoped it would have some effect. However, they did not have many weapons in their ninja tool bag, and there were too many flying stones. Even if they opened the sharingan, it was useless. The birds under them turned into a ball of ink. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224 Weightlessness. Feeling the sudden weightlessness, Dong Shileng did not panic at all. Ninjutsu? Summoning technique. He had not used the mountain eagle as a mount for himself and others. One of the important reasons was that he could help them in an emergency. For this reason, he also specially notified Meixiang to stop the transportation of supplies for the next 2 days. Mountain eagle, catch them. As a large cloud of summoning smoke dispersed, a huge bald eagle appeared in the air. As soon as it was summoned by Dong Shileng, it was well prepared and grabbed Yan and others who were in free fall with its claws. At this time, they lost the flying birds under their buttocks, which was a critical moment. They were all grateful to be caught by the mountain eagle. However, before he could breathe a sigh of relief, how could the rock ninja above watch them escape? Each of them used all the means they could. Looking at the rocks and explosive clay coming towards him and the mountain eagle, Dong Shileng really had a headache. The rocks were easy to deal with, but the explosive clay mixed in them was troublesome. Although he could use the lightning release ninjutsu to make the explosive clay a dud, the rocks were not easy to deal with. If he dealt with the clay the other way around, the rocks could not be ignored. This is the only way to try it. Mountain eagle, no problem. While thinking this, Dong Shileng also shouted at the mountain eagle under him, and he had already started to make hand seals before getting the other party's response. Wind style, vacuum wave. As the seal in his hand was completed, a series of colorless and transparent sharp blades cut towards the falling objects in the sky. Moreover, the power of these ninjutsu is very different from that of ordinary ninjas. Those chakra wind blades that are clearly visible in the side of the sharingan are surprisingly large, as wide as the waist of an ordinary person. It was Dong Shileng who used the chakra of the mountain eagle to perform the wind style of ninjutsu. Although the opponent had no way to perform any advanced wind style of ninjutsu, Dong Shileng, who had signed a contract with him, could use the opponent's chakra very well, perform ninjutsu on its behalf. As this ninjutsu was performed, the rocks in the sky and the detonating clay were constantly cut into pieces, and Dong Shileng's seals in his hand had not stopped. Wind style, great breakthrough. Using the chakra of the eagle again, he performed this enhanced version of wind ninjutsu, and Tawashiro heaved a sigh of relief at this time. With the buffer of these two ninjutsu, they can probably get through this disaster safely. The reason for performing wind ninjutsu is that as a flying bird, the chakra attribute of the eagle itself is wind attribute. And after a whole night of consumption, Tawashiro's chakra in his body is not much go. Don't stay here for long. Having just solved the trouble in the sky, Tawashiro had no idea of staying to retaliate against the other party. He didn't insist on completing the task or anything. If he didn't slip away at this time, would he wait for the other party to invite him to visit their camp? Got it. At the signal from Dong Shilang, the mountain eagle directly spread its wide wings, stirred up a huge gust of wind pressure, and prepared to shoot out. Although it could not make seals because it had no arms, it had no problem using its wings to burst chakra and increase its flying speed. As long as its wings flapped, its figure would disappear at a speed that ordinary people could not understand. Like a flash of lightning. It's just that things in the world are unpredictable, and they always go in a direction that you don't want to see. A figure in the air, without any sense of existence, appeared in a blind spot above Dong Shilang at this time, and because of the effect of gravity, the mountain eagle that was approaching him quickly and was flying in the air and about to leave Earth escape middle. Rock Fist has not yet revealed its figure, but the other party has secretly made seals and used this ninjutsu developed by the Rock Ninja Village. And he did not go directly to Dong Shilang, but locked his attack target on this huge bird. When the opponent's entire right arm was covered with a layer of rock, and it used gravity to dive towards the mountain eagle, Dong Shilang also felt something, but this feeling came a little too late. When he looked up, the opponent had approached to a distance of less than 10 meters. And it was obviously too late for him to perform ninjutsu at this time. He could only shoot a large number of shurikens and kunai at the opponent, trying to make the opponent hesitate and give up his plan. However, this attacker who was hidden in the air and bypassed Dong Shilang's Sharingan vision obviously did not intend to give up his attack. He fell down against these attacks of Dong Shilang. From the faint clinking sound in the air, it can be known that the opponent not only performed the invisibility ninjutsu, but also covered himself with a layer of rock armor. As a result, these emergency attacks of Dong Shilang seemed painless in the eyes of the opponent. Following this figure, whose whole body was glowing with blue chakra in Tawashiro's vision, he placed his fist on the mountain eagle. The big bird let out a painful cry at this time. At the same time, it lost its balance and fell to the ground. The opponent's rock fist chose a very accurate attack range. It hit the eagle's wing root with one punch, making it completely lose its ability to fly. Before Tawashiro could avenge the mountain eagle, it had already lost its balance, forcing Tawashiro to pause his actions, trying to maintain its own balance, and at the same time trying to see if it could try to land safely. After the opponent succeeded in the attack, he had no intention of stopping. He jumped directly, left the back of the mountain eagle, and fell freely to the ground. Of course, he would not fall to his death. With a flying companion by his side, he was quite calm. He also gave Tawashiro a stiff smile, as if to say, "Boy, enjoy these last moments." After the attacker succeeded, he did not continue to maintain the invisibility technique, so Dong Shilang recognized the other party's identity. He was a short rock ninja. However, Dong Shilang did not have time to sigh at the other party's identity at this time. He was thinking about whether there was any good way to make them land reluctantly. Chapter 225 Sealing Scroll. Looking at the ground getting closer and closer, Dong Shilang had no time to think about more things. At the beginning, they were only more than 300 meters high, and then they were smashed by the flying birds drawn by the rock ninja, which reduced the height a lot. Now they are less than 300 meters from the ground. Earth style, light and heavy rock technique. If you want to land safely, you must first reduce your own weight. He also knows the light and heavy rock technique, but he can't reach the height of the rock ninja. He can only reduce some of the weight of the mountain eagle. But just like this, it is not possible to land safely. Water style, water array pillar. As the distance from the ground is getting closer and closer, Dong Shilang seized the opportunity and performed a water-style ninjutsu. The water array pillar is not a very offensive ninjutsu, but the caster can create several water columns, which rotate around him continuously to create some momentum. and can also defend against some fire-style ninjutsu. And the water array pillar created by Dong Shilang is not like the ordinary water array pillar, which is divided into several streams of water. There was only one column of water rising from the ground, but the diameter of this column of water was several meters thick, and the location where it appeared was exactly where the mountain eagle landed. Fortunately, after the initial panic, the mountain eagle quickly stabilized its balance, otherwise, Dong Shilang would not be able to save himself. With his light and heavy rock technique to reduce his own weight, and with the buffer of the water column, their falling speed was reduced a lot. But this alone was not enough. Fortunately, Dong Shilang was not fighting alone. Uchiha, who was caught in the claws of the mountain eagle, contributed his strength at the critical moment. He used the ninjutsu of Earth Escape and Huang Kun Swamp to add another layer of insurance for their landing, so that they would not fall on the hard ground. Otherwise the impact and inertia of landing would be enough to make them drink a pot. Finally, we landed successfully. Standing on the ground that's raised with Earth Escape, they were all in a very awkward state at this time, but fortunately, they all landed safely. Zoashan Diao, go back to the spiritual island to rest first. When we are done with our business here, we will summon you and help you heal your wounds. This time, it was really thanks to the other party. Otherwise, their group would not have a good time. Well, remember to hurry up. Zoashan Diao did not continue to waste time. It also knew that now was not the time to talk about these things, and directly cancelled the spiritual call. Next, it will not be easy to deal with. Standing in the large cloud of white smoke generated when Zoashan Diao left, Dong Shilang had a headache. The opponent's surprise attack caught them off guard. They were immediately put on the ground. What's more troublesome is that the opponent has a clearer advantage at this time. If he wants to use the ninjutsu of Super Beast fake painting to help his companions leave from the air, it will be extremely difficult. The opponent will not give them a chance to take off. Let's go. Before he could think more, through the gradually dispersing smoke, he saw a large pile of white detonating clay falling towards them. And Toshiro had no intention of using Chidori Senbon to turn the clay into duds. If they wanted to break through a certain distance, it would consume a lot of energy, so they would save as much chakra as possible. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as they left the place, a series of explosions resounded throughout the open space. Did I open the door to a new world for these rock ninjas? Looking at the rock ninja in the sky, who was flying in the sky with the help of his companions and constantly dropping explosives on him and others, Toshiro was thinking about this question in his mind. For rock ninjas, aerial bombing is not an impossible task, but no one has ever done it before. With a good teacher like Toshiro, they followed suit. Stop them. Don't let them escape the encirclement. A rock ninja Jonin looked at Toshiro and his group and gave a direct order. Their mission was not to fight to the death with these people, but to stop these enemies rushing towards them. As soon as he finished speaking, he and dozens of ninjas behind him divided into two groups and began to make hand seals at the same time. Earth style, Yellow Spring Swamp Earth style, Earth flowing wall. Looking at those rock ninjas who were blocking him by performing ninjutsu at the same time, Dong Shilang twitched his mouth and cursed inwardly. These rock ninjas really like to fight in groups. Feeling the little chakra left in his body, Dong Shilang took out a sealing scroll from his ninja tool bag and shouted at the people who were running behind him. Understood. Without much communication, Uchiha understood what Dong Shilang meant. After working together for a long time, he rushed forward with force and made hand seals at the same time. Earth style, Earthquake core. A large piece of land that led directly to the opposite earth-flowing wall was lifted up by Uchiha to serve as a foothold for them. Asagi. Understood. Uchiha Saki agreed, took out a senbon from her ninja tool bag, and looked at the threat in the air. Her chakra was not as abundant as Toshiro's, but using the senbon in her hand to infuse thunder attribute chakra could also have a good effect, which could suppress the detonating clay. Release. Without stopping his extremely fast pace, Toshiro unfolded the scroll in his hand and made a seal to remove the seal on the scroll. As the seal was released, a huge amount of senjutsu chakra gushed out from the scroll and swept towards Toshiro's figure. After trying to seal his own shadow clone successfully, Toshiro tried to seal his own senjutsu shadow clone again. After trying a variety of sealing materials, he successfully sealed those Senjutsu shadow clones with the help of chakra paper produced by the original Senju clan, and ink mixed with the powder of the seal stone of the demon country and the blood of the summoned beast, and the seal scroll written with it. It gave Dong Shileng a portable power bank. The only downside is the price of these things, which is really touching. The paper produced by the Senju clan that can be used as a seal scroll is fine. Although it is expensive, it is not too outrageous. The seal stone produced in the demon country is really sky high. Just a small piece the size of a fingernail cost him nearly half a year's battlefield income. Dong Shileng lamented his poverty more than once. The key is that this kind of scroll is a disposable thing, which will be scrapped after use, and there is no way to use it again. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.